Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. Srila
Hare Krishna.
Prabhupada.
Haribo.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Should I try sharing my screen now? Is it allowed yet?
Can you share?
Yeah, let's see. Share screen. I don't think I'm allowed yet.
Prabhuji, you have been made a co-host. I think you can share the screen. Just check once
Okay.
again.
Okay, let's see. I think now I can. How is that?
Yeah, it's coming.
Yes.
now. Yes, we can see your screen, Prabhu.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yes, perfect. You may unshare it now, Prabhuji. After my introduction, you may then start sharing and continue with your lecture.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I think people are still coming and logging in. So let us start at 5:05.
Okay, Prabhu.
We had very good attendance, Anutma Prabhu, last 3 sessions.
I heard 200-300 or something, huh?
Yeah, first day there were 289 and then consistently 250 plus, and then Radhika Raman Prabhu, Gauranga Prabhu, like 170, 180.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. It's such an important topic.
Yes.
These topics have been separately dealt with, but integration of all these topics is a rare occasion to look into.
Yeah. I think also motivating people to be more, a larger number of people to be, make a personal commitment to do what's necessary individually, politically, the business world, students, older people. That's the challenge. It's one of those situations we know pretty much what to do, but do we have the will to do it? So Gauranga and Radhika Raman, they both spoke already.
Yes, they already. And then Gopal Prabhu also.
Very good. I would have liked to attend the whole conference, but this time it wasn't possible. But next time I'll plan the whole weekend.
Yeah, next time we will do with Green ISKCON, perhaps.
Well, Shama's going to speak about that, isn't he?
Yeah. I think he's next to you, after
Yeah.
you.
He comes right after. I'll do the theory, he'll get the practical.
Yeah. I mean, in a typical conference, when you have parallel sessions, generally we see, anywhere from 20 to 30 people attending, 35. So even if we have, anything more than 30, it's a good attendance. I was on Hare Krishna TV that other day.
Out of Mayapur, Mumbai, or?
Mumbai.
Great. About the conference or something else?
No, just individual life, but I talk about Green ISKCON committee there.
Great.
Yeah. Mataji, we can start in a minute.
Yeah, sure, Prabhuji. So let me share the screen.
So Prabhu, we can start.
Let us start.
Namaskar to all of you. I welcome you all to the last session of this conference. The theme of this session is environmental sustainability through social and cultural heritage. If you look at the 2030 agenda adopted by the United Nations General Assembly, It integrates for the first time the role of culture through cultural heritage and creativity as an enabler of sustainable development across the sustainable development goals. If we exactly read what they have written in their site is that heritage was long absent from the mainstream sustainable development debate, despite its crucial importance to societies and the wide acknowledgement of its great potential to contribute to social, economic, and environmental goals. But if you look at the Sanatan Dharma, since ages we have emphasized on environmental sustainability through social and cultural heritage. So where do we exactly lose the track, the awareness and understanding of this important issue? The Sanatan Dharma, it reveres sacred rivers, mountains, forest, animal, and love to all the natural things and nature. So for example, if we look at any of our villages nearby, we all can connect that there is one sacred temple, there is one sacred pond or a water body, there is one sacred tree like people or banyan or any other tree, and there are many other sacred things which are identified within the village. And all these things are nothing but to protect those things from pollution and from being destroyed, isn't it? So taking all these things together, this particular session, it is going to try to highlight all those traditional knowledges and sustainable goals taught by Sanatan Dharma since ages that is very relevant to the present theme. We have very important and very interesting talks which are lined up, and all these talks are going to actually integrate these topics together and try to present a very nice comprehensive information on environmental sustainability through social and cultural heritage. The chair of this particular session is Dr. Vishalakshi Talakukula. Dr. Vishalakshi Talakukula is a professor in the Department of Civil Engineering at Mahindra University Ecole Centrary School of Engineering. Prior to joining MU, she was the founding head of the Department of Civil Engineering, Bennett University, Greater Noida. She is Honorary Secretary of Indian Association of Structural Engineers and Honorary Treasurer of Indian Concrete Institute. She is Governing Council member of Women in Science and Engineering, India. She has a very rich academic experience of more than 18 years and plus 5 years with industry. Her research interests include development of sustainable construction materials, green concrete, structural health monitoring using piezo sensors. She has received various awards, and among them include the Best Paper Award at Corrosion Conference and Expo, CoreCon 2012, Best Paper Award at National Civil Engineers Symposium held at IIT Bombay in 2013, Best Poster Award at ICTR-AM 2012. She is technical member of International Committees of Union of Laboratories and experts in construction materials, systems and structures, and technical member of Indian Concrete Institute for framing guidelines of waterproofing systems. So with that, I welcome Vishalakshi. So Dr. Vishalakshi, now the chair is yours and you are going to host this whole program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mataji, just a minute. Can you stop sharing the screen so Prabhu can project? And also, Ajanta Prabhu, many of, I could hear you, but others could not hear you somehow. So I just want to make sure everybody can hear Mataji. Mataji, can you just speak just one line and let me check if everybody can hear you?
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Ajanta. Was that clear?
Anupam, can you hear her?
I can hear very well. I can hear
Okay.
well.
Anybody who could not hear Mataji?
No, we can hear, Prabhu. It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Mataji. Sorry.
Thank you. Great. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ajanta, for the opening remarks and introduction, introducing me for the session. Good morning, good evening to all the participants in whichever part of the world you are there. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for organizing such a wonderful conference, which is integrating spirituality, sustainability, and simplicity. And it's a pleasure to host, to act as a chair of this session, which is a concluding session. This is the last session of the two-day conference. Hope the participants enjoyed the deliberation of the last 3 sessions. This session has 5 wonderful talks related to environmental sustainability, covered with respect to various dimensions, such as from Vaishnava perspective, from the context of population growth, from simplicity and spirituality, and from the Indian perspective related to environmental and SDGs. So without any further ado, let's begin the session. Before starting the session, I have a few announcements to make for the speakers and for the participants. Each speaker would be given 25 minutes to present and 5 minutes are catered for the question and answer session. The organizers will alert the speaker around 20 minutes so that the speaker can wind up in the time allotted. Request all the speaker to kindly adhere to the timeline, please. And for the participants are requested to type their questions in the chat box so that the questions can be taken after the speaker completes its presentation. So with that, let's start the session. Let me share the screen. So the first presentation would be by Shriman Anuttama Das on environmental sustainability, a Vaishnava perspective. So let me have the privilege to introduce Shriman Anuttama Das to the audience. He is a Minister of Communication and a member of Governing Body Commission of ISKCON. He studied political science and social science at Michigan State University and at University of Michigan. He served as GBC chairman in 2014. He is the chairman of the Mayapur Executive Board, which oversees ISKCON's international headquarters in West Bengal. And he oversees a dozen temples in the eastern USA. He is a member of ISKCON since 1975. He is a convener of annual Vaishnava Christian in India and the United States, and the Vaishnava Muslim Dialogue in the United States. He is a board member of Religions for Peace, USA, and the advisory board of the Religious Freedom Institute. He is also the convener of ISKCON Environmental Initiative, which promotes sustainable and green policies within ISKCON. So with that, I'll hand over the platform to Shriman Anuttama Das ji. So please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Goyal, respected organizers, friends, and colleagues. Hare Krishna, it's a great honor to be with you today. And I want to congratulate you on this very, very important conference that you've been holding. Within the Vaishnava Hindu tradition that I adhere to, and especially as a member of ISKCON and a student of Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, one is hard-pressed to not be an environmentalist and a person concerned about sustainability. Why is environmental sustainability and environmental stewardship an imperative for the Vaishnava perspective? I'd like to highlight 6 reasons and some additional reflections from my tradition about the mandate that we have to protect nature and ensure that we provide care for the future, for our children and generations to come. So my first point, God is a playful environmentalist. Vaishnavism, the monotheistic tradition within the broad Hindu Dharma or Hindu family of faith, teaches that God is a person. God is not just a force or energy or light, but first and foremost a person, the supreme personality of Godhead. The Bhagavad Gita, the best known of all Hindu scriptures, explains that God appears in this world to attract forgetful individual souls back to him. In so doing, Krishna displays his Leela, or his divine play, revealing wonderful pastimes to attract our wandering hearts. The Srimad Bhagavatam, or the Bhagavad Purana, the preeminent Vaishnava text, informs us that the kingdom of God, Goloka Vrindavan, is a place of immeasurable natural beauty and charm. It is that place where every step is a dance and every word is a song. When Krishna appears on earth to remind humankind of the highest and essential goal of life, awakening our love for him, he brings a replica of that transcendent world with him. The Bhagavatam describes the wonders of that spiritual realm, Vrindavan, the supremely beautiful natural environment, and how Krishna, the eternally youthful supreme person, plays there as a cowherd with his divine associates. So I'll show some slides here as we go through. So here we see a picture of Lord Krishna and Balaram and his cowherd friends along the bank of the beautiful river Jamuna in Vrindavan. Reading from the Bhagavatam. The Vrindavan forest was as sanctified as the clear mind of a sadhu, and was full of bees, flowers, and fruits. There were chirping birds and clear water lakes that could relieve one of all fatigues. Sweet flavored breezes blew always, refreshing the mind and body. Krishna with his friends and Balaram entered the forest and, seeing the favorable situation, enjoyed the atmosphere to the fullest extent. Later, we learn that environmental degradation entered even this earthly replica of God's kingdom. So continuing reading from the Bhagavatam. Within the river Jamuna, there was a great lake, and in that lake, the black serpent Kaliya used to live. Because of his poison, the whole area was so contaminated that if a bird even happened to fly over the spot, he would immediately fall down in the water and die. Such was the level of pollution. Due to the poisonous effect, continuing the reading, the trees and grass near the bank of the Jamuna had all dried up. Lord Krishna saw the effect of that great serpent's poison. The whole river was now deadly. Krishna, who had invented himself just to reclaim all undesirable elements in the world, climbed up a big kadamba tree on the bank of the Jamuna. He tightened his belt and, flapping his arms just like a wrestler, jumped into the midst of the poisonous lake. Kaliya, being of a demoniac temperament, felt great anger within his heart, and thus he grabbed Krishna with his mighty coils. So here we see an illustration of Kaliya's snake holding Lord Krishna in the turbulent waters of the Jamuna. For 2 hours, Krishna remained like an ordinary child, gripped in the coils of Kaliya. But then Krishna freed himself and pressed down on the serpent's hoods and jumped upon them. Kaliya became reduced in his sinful situation. He finally began to understand that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he began to pray to the Supreme. Lord Krishna, who was acting as a small human child, ordered the serpent thus: "You must immediately leave this place and go to the ocean. Leave without delay. Do not pollute the waters of the Jamuna. Let it be drunk by my cows and the cowherd boys without hindrance." Obeying the orders of Lord Krishna, Kaliya left the lake within the Jamuna. It's from the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. There are many other similar stories of Krishna's care for the earth. Once Lord Krishna swallowed a forest fire to prevent destruction of the sacred forests. Another time, he playfully took the form of Lord Varaha, a gigantic boar, to rescue the earth when it fell into the cosmic ocean. Another rendition of Lord Varaha. So, when considering the question, is environmental sustainability and care for the earth important? The Vaishnava responds emphatically, yes. Lord Krishna himself demonstrates his love and his protection for the earth, the waters, the birds, and the beasts. We must act with similar care and not live like poisonous snakes, polluting the water, destroying the land, causing harm to the creatures of those places, and seeding havoc for future generations. So that's the first point. God himself is a playful environmentalist. Point 2, God owns everything. From the Sri Upanishad, Ishavashamidam sarvam yat kinchat jigatam yigat, tena tvaktvena bujidha magridha kashasvidanam. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one must not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. Lord Krishna, while playful, remains the supreme proprietor of everything in existence. This entire world according to the Vaishnava teachings, is the property of God. The earth is his, the sky is his, all species of life are his. Here again, we see Lord Krishna in the forest with all of his beloved creatures. Despite our traditional family homes, our mortgages, our no trespassing signs, nothing in the world belongs to us. For example, if I borrow a tool from my neighbor or use my cousin's cottage for a weekend retreat, it's common decency that I keep in mind who is the real owner. Remembering that the tool or the cottage are borrowed property, I treat such gifts with care. Later, I return them in pristine condition to the real owner. As Vaishnavas, knowing that God is the ultimate owner of everything obliges me to not misuse or overconsume or pollute the world. The earth is God's property. It is only loaned to us and our generation for our respectful and conscientious use. Third point, all life is sacred. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo Matta Sarvam Pravartate. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. Vaishnava tradition teaches that the world is not only Krishna's property, it is also sacred. The world is an expansion of God's energies and therefore connected to him, and in that sense, divine. As we know in India and elsewhere, faithful people are often seen offering puja or worship to the rivers, the forest, the land, knowing they are connected to the divine. Mother Earth, Goddess Bhumi, is a sacred being and a dear associate of God himself. For Vaishnavas, care of the earth includes all the earth's creatures, not just care for dogs or cats or horses or whales, but all life. The Vedic scriptures explain that wherever there is life, there is the spark of the divine, an Atma, an individual soul. Vaishnavas therefore practice ahimsa, non-violence, not to harm any living being. As strict vegetarians, we do not eat meat, fish, or eggs. In fact, much scientific evidence has shown that adopting a vegetarian lifestyle is the single most important choice we can make as an individual to ensure sustainability and environmental protection. Knowing that all life is sacred, Vaishnavas commit to protect the earth and all her creatures. My fourth point, we are just passing through, so we should act responsibly and we should think sustainably. Atato Brahma Jignasa. According to the Vedanta Sutra, now therefore, having acquired this human form of life, it is time to inquire into the absolute truth. All Hindus understand that the earth planet, while a gift of God, is not our home. It is a temporary residence. We are eternal and merely passing through this realm. Just as a thoughtful man on a short train ride will avoid fighting with his neighbors for the most choice seat, Vaishnavas advocate that if we consider the importance of this human form of life, our sensual demands and conflicts will automatically decrease. Much like mature adults stop fighting over the candy and the ice cream snacks that demanded their attention and fed their quarrels as children. The essential opportunity of life is not to enjoy sensual or material gratification. It is to realize God, to understand the absolute truth, to become self-realized. While we are here in this world, we should utilize the world's resources primarily as they aid in that purpose, spiritual awakening. Thus, our very attempt to exploit the world is often an expression of ignorance of the real purpose of life and rebelliousness towards God. Wise men and women do not damage the environment to maximize temporal pleasures and comforts. Instead, they live as stewards, working in harmony with the world. They know we have more important things to accomplish, to seek the absolute truth. My fifth point, Bhagavad Gita 270 states, Sapuryam manam machara pritishtam samudamapa pravishanti advat. A person who can tolerate the incessant flow of desires, like rivers into the ocean, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. So, simple living, high thinking. The Vaishnava tradition is an expression of bhakti yoga, meaning to link with God through devotion. Knowing that life should be centered on awakening our love of God, Vaishnavas practice and teach simple living and high thinking. Rather than striving nonstop to consume material resources at the expense of future generations, overcome by an endless desire for more stuff and destroying the world in our wake, we should live simply. My teacher, Srila Prabhupada, in the 7 purposes that he outlined for ISKCON, he wrote that we should strive to bring the members closer together for the purpose of teaching a simpler, more natural way of life. ISKCON has since established dozens of eco-friendly rural communities around the world, some of them completely off the grid, aspiring to this standard set by our founder. More of this has been presented in detail by my friend and colleague, Gauranga. Here we see a picture of an eco-village in India, established by the ISKCON Society. And here we see another eco-village in Hungary, New Vrajadam. My last point of the 6, the law of karma. Hindus and Vaishnavas certainly believe in the law of karma, or action and reaction. If we cause harm to the earth, to the air, to the rivers, or to the creatures of the world, we will suffer reactions. If we consume more than we should, denying other classes of people of their due share, or denying future generations, we will suffer karmic reactions. On the practical level, we experience these reactions every single day. This conference is discussing these reactions as we see them. We see all around us the impact of environmental abuse, pollution, scarcity of water, rising sea levels, diminishing ice packs, increased severity of hurricanes, fires, flooding, drought, and the like. Thus, if for no other reason than minimizing the suffering we bring upon ourselves, we must be stewards of the earth and minimize our consumption and promote sustainability. It is essential to change our behaviors before it's too late. Here's another photo of an ISKCON farm engaged in traditional farming methods. So, what are some of the challenges that we face? I have to acknowledge that despite these clearly stated principles and values, not all Vaishnavas, or members of ISKCON for that matter, make environmental care the priority that we all know it should be. I'd like to discuss a few of the obstacles that Vaishnavas and Hindus in general need to overcome. I'll discuss 3 of them. 1, the world is Maya. All Hindu traditions teach that the soul is entrapped in a world of illusion or Maya. It's a complex topic, but for the Vaishnavas, the world is real, but it is temporary, and in that sense, Maya, or false. A philosophy that declares the world to be illusory, unfortunately, can be easily misdirected, thinking there's no need to care for the world, since it is, in one sense, just an illusion. We may think that because the world is temporary, it has no value. But if we remember God's role, as discussed above, and the sacredness of the world he manifested, we will place proper value on sustainability and environmental care. Second challenge, our comfort zone. Some Vaishnavas or religious people of all varieties may think we are especially blessed. We can become overly comfortable or smug in their status and ignore God's mandates to do the right thing for the future of the earth, much like Indra's offense during the Govardhan Leela. Some seem to think that because I am God's devotee or a member of this religious tradition or this spiritual path, I am now too special and important to be bothered with mundane things like minimizing my use of water or recycling or taking care of nature as a priority in my life, or concerning myself with the sustainability of my choices. This is a dangerous misinterpretation. But if we remember the humility that all faiths proclaim, this shortcoming too can be overcome. Not that the earth is there for me to enjoy, but I am God's servant and let me take care of it. Third challenge that I'll highlight today, cultural patterns. Turning momentarily to Vaishnavas in India. India's historic agrarian culture is based on care for natural surroundings, as we heard in the first introduction, and living in harmony with Earth's abundance. Yet, modern impulses have led to harmful practices and the abuse of nature and of Earth. I recall that as a young Vaishnava brahmachari traveling by train across India in the 1970s, I watched my fellow travelers who would purchase nuts or fruit or something of that order, and they would unwrap the packaging and throw it out the window, which in the 1970s was usually made of banana leaves or something like that. Later, a decade later, I saw vendors selling their wares of fruit or nuts or whatever, now wrapped in newspaper, a paper that was similarly casually discarded out the window. A decade later, I was very distraught to see the vendors had now modernized. Now they used plastic bags, and by habit are still thrown out the window by millions of train riders. Of course, there are large-scale efforts to change these behaviors, and we must overcome those behaviors. Here's a very sad photograph of an iconic Indian known the world over, the Taj Mahal, and there's the foreground. And you'll see the number of plastic bags even in this photograph. Today, we know that many of India's sacred rivers are horribly polluted due to these harmful habits and lack of a long-term vision, and remembering the core teachings of our spiritual culture. These pictures are from the from a film, The Stolen River, by Dr. Christina Danka. Here they show the Jamuna River, how it's been misdirected by dams, leaving no water whatsoever north of New Delhi. Now, believe it or not, this is downstream. You saw how dry it was. There's no water there. This is downstream. This slide shows the same river below New Delhi, where the river consists primarily of wastewater and runoff from the city. This man is surrounded by foam from the river's pollutants. And of course, it is certainly not just India. Cultural behaviors all over the world feed our mutual destruction, and they must be stopped. A more refreshing photograph, I think. This is a picture of an ISKCON community. In the Gita, Krishna states, all beautiful things, they spring from but a spark of my splendor. In conclusion, knowing that Krishna is a playful environmentalist and the supreme proprietor, that all life is sacred, that we are here on earth for but a brief time, that we are best served by simple living and high thinking, that if I do consume more than my share and harm the earth in future generations, I will suffer karmic reactions. And that God himself wants the natural resources protected, gives much impetus for Vaishnavas to be stewards of the earth. Another scene from an ISKCON community. Thus today, ISKCON has dozens of eco-friendly rural communities and eco-friendly programs around the world. Based on an eco-friendly diet, ISKCON affiliated programs feed hot, healthy vegetarian lunches to 1.2 million lower income school children every day, 6 days a week in India and more abroad. Other presenters will discuss ISKCON's recent endeavor to promote sustainable practices in our temples and our congregations. Yet, the Vaishnava proclaims, most importantly, to overcome the environmental challenges we all face and to cleanse and protect the earth, we must first cleanse our own hearts. It is only when we become purified in heart, purified of the desire and the tendencies to exploit the earth, its creatures, and each other, that we can truly be stewards of the world and promote and adhere to sustainable practices and lifestyles. Here again, we see Krishna in Vrindavan. In that spirit, I'll end by reciting the primary mantra of my tradition, asking Lord Krishna to cleanse our minds and our hearts and our behaviors, and make all of us instruments in his environmental vision, his instructions, how we should live in this earth, and how to live as agents of sustainability throughout the world. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much. I'm very grateful to being with you here today.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for completing the presentation within the specified time. Thank you so much. Thank you for beautifully picturizing and explaining from Srimad Bhagavatam the reasons why it is important for a Vaishnava to protect environment. And also you have presented the various challenges associated with that. Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting us know how a Vaishnava is committed to protect every living soul, and also making us aware how Krishna had led the way for environmental sustainability. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would request the participant to type the question answers in the chat box so that I can take 1 or 2 questions, because we have time before we proceed to the second presentation. Yes, there is a question. Who is Vaishnava and how we can be a Vaishnava? Prabhuji, for you.
Thank you. Well, technically, Vaishnava means one is a follower of the 4 primary Vaishnava Sampradayas. We in ISKCON were members of the Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya. Vaishnava, in a more broader sense, we would say, simply identifies that every living being has an eternal connection with God. One may be an atheist and says there is no God, but that doesn't mean God denies that person's existence. God just still has an eternal connection with that person, but they're allowed to act out their rebelliousness. So in a broader sense, we feel, our tradition teaches that everyone is connected, whether one is a Hindu or Christian or Muslim or a Jain or a Sikh or a Jew or Buddhist. We all are eternal spiritual beings connected with God. Here in my presentation, I'm specifically referring to those that recognize as practitioners of the Vaishnava tradition or practices to help us reawaken our connection with Krishna. That for us, these are the essential environmental teachings that are there. So if we accept a certain part of our teachings, we should also be aware there's very strong environmental and sustainability mandates that are there that we should accept. There's similar teachings in other traditions, of course, but I'm today particularly focusing on our Vaishnava tradition. So hopefully that's helpful. And becoming a Vaishnava is simple. Read Bhagavad Gita, follow his instructions. It's easy. And become an environmentalist, as I pointed out today.
The next question is from Vishnu Namdas. What is simple living in terms of food, housing, and lifestyle?
Well, Prabhupada also taught us a principle: time, place, and circumstance. So someone who's living, say, in an ISKCON rural community in Hungary, I visited there, and that, or say in a simple village somewhere in India, reduced in our consumption means being conscientious of how many times we pump the water and not wasting the gift there. Or for someone like myself and many of the people on the conference who live in modern cities, that means being conscious of making sure the tap doesn't overflow and minimizing the water we use for our showers. And for people, again, I live in America and people love their lawns. So it's oftentimes very practical things. You grow grass that requires less water, and you use other types of foliage that shade trees and things like that. So it depends on our location, how we apply those. But the principle is that we need to do so. And then in our own area, in our own part of the world, analyze what is it the steps that I can take. Because part of the problem is sometimes we think, and I'll say in my own Vaishnava community, sometimes it's seen ISKCON, devotees of ISKCON will say, well, I'm a vegetarian, I'm already doing my part. And I would say to them, well, you're a vegetarian, that's the biggest part. What about the other parts? Or someone else says, I'm recycling, I drive a Prius, whatever. Okay, that's very good. What about being a vegetarian? So, it's an ongoing effort. It's not that we simply stamp ourselves, I'm doing what I need to do and there's no further challenges. There's always progress to be made.
The next question is from our conference chair, Ramesh Goyalji. Apart from their main practice of bhakti, how devotees can set an example in terms of environmental sustainability?
Well, again, it depends on where we are, what part of the world, but I think, and my colleague is coming up, I believe, next to talk about the ISKCON environmental initiatives, is I think it begins with us taking an inventory of our practices and determining there's so many small steps that we can take in terms of just, as they say, what is it, recycle, reuse, minimizing our usage and asking ourselves, I live in America and we're constantly bombarded with, you need to buy this, you need to buy that, you need to consume this, and to be really thinking, well, do I really need that? Is that an essential thing? Or let me simplify it. So I think keeping this principle, first and foremost, simple living, high thinking. Let me minimize, let me push back against the pressures to consume more and more. And now it's certainly not just America. I mean, and I think in Indian cities, there's more billboards per square foot than there are in where I live in Washington, D.C. And they all have the same message: consume more, consume more, consume more. And we have to kind of, chant our mantra, which is consume less, live simply, live simply, live simply. And as I mentioned in my talk, there's deep philosophical reasons for that. And I know many of the presenters are talking about, the practical, tangible ways of doing that and the impact if we don't. So both theologically, philosophically, practically, and just out of care for future generations, there's so many things that can and should be done. I drive a Prius and it's 20 years old. I got one of the very first ones that was ever made. And we try to do other things. I live in an apartment and I complained to the apartment people because I felt they weren't measuring the water properly to make sure that it's not used. I had a leaky faucet. I called the repairman and said, fix it. It's dripping. I'm wasting God's energy. So there's so many practical things that we can do. And it really does depend upon each and every one of us.
Yeah, taking that concept of simple living forward, there is a question from Vikram Singh Tomar. How can we create such protocol in every country, as everyone is not clear with the concept of simple living, high thinking?
Yeah, very good question. Well, I think, Stephen Covey, Dr. Goyle is in Utah. Dr. Covey is a famous Utah-based philosopher. And he talked about we all have different circles of influence. We may have a circle of concern. The whole planet is in trouble. Like, I'm very concerned about what's happening last year, especially the fires in Australia, but I can't do anything about that. It's outside of my circle of influence. So where I have influence, where I can make a difference, there I should act. Sometimes we hear we should think globally and act locally. Same concept. So it begins with ourselves, making sure that we're living appropriately. Our family members, ensuring that our children understand that this is the spiritually appropriate and materially mandatory way that we should try to live. And then influencing our friends and our families. And some of us have small businesses. So absorbing some of the extra cost to being more environmentally friendly and more sustainable. Some of us work in big corporations, so we can, have sessions with our fellow workers. We can talk to the boss and say, boss, they're still using styrofoam in the lunchroom. Or I noticed that, we're not, why don't we spend a little money and work on, if it's a big company, work on, our own purification of water that's coming out of our offices. There's a lot of steps we can do. So we should look and see, where do I have influence, and make those steps. We shouldn't think, well, I can't change this, I can't change that. We should think, oh, I can change this, and I can try to change that, and focus on those things. So it begins at home, and goes out from there. And also be very careful telling people what they should do is not as effective as showing people what they can do by our own example.
There are a lot of questions, Prabhuji, which are popping up, but because of the paucity of the time, I would be taking the last question. It is from S.V. Ramarao. He asks, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, is there any environmental influence on the present COVID pandemic?
Is there any environmental, I missed part of the question.
Is there
Environmental
any
effect for
environmental influence on the present COVID pandemic?
Environmental influence. Well, there's many scientists here that can answer that question much better than I can.
there are positive influences
Yeah.
on the environment.
Yeah, and I'll just say from a little bit of a philosophical point of view, if it's many things, but one thing it is a reminder to us that the world is temporary, that our own existence here is very temporary. So as I mentioned, sometimes we get comfortable here, but we forget the purpose. It's a reminder we are passing through, and we should tread lightly on the earth, and we should be careful in taking care of our bodies and those of others, knowing that there's a higher purpose. So I'll just say that as a general kind of a philosophical foundation. I'll let Professor Goyal and others address that in more detail.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for enlightened presentation. Could you kindly unshare your screen?
I will do that now.
So let's move on to the next presentation. The next presentation is by Dr. Srinivasulu on the topic, An Appeal for Environmental Sustainability in ISKCON. So let me introduce the speaker to the audience. Dr. Srinivasulu currently works as program coordinator for two major research programs on Department of Defense and BHP at CRC CARE, which has a headquarters at University of Newcastle. He completed his PhD research at the Center of Environmental Risk Assessment and Remediation, University of South Australia. He plays a major role in demonstrating cost-effective remediation solution to manage the contaminated sites across Australia. He manages and coordinates the defense and BHP projects under National Contaminated Sites Demonstration Program. His role as a program coordinator involves in applying for grants, managing and accessing the performance for future strategy. He also undertakes research in mathematical modeling aspects of groundwater flow and contaminated transport in groundwater, contaminated aquifers, and provide consultation services to various large projects. So, Dr. Srinivasulu?
Yes.
Yeah. You can
Can
take
you all
the
hear me?
platform. Yeah, perfectly. We can hear you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Visalakshi, and all the participants and senior members of ISKCON. Today, I would be taking you through the topic, An Appeal for Environmental Sustainability in ISKCON. As His Grace Anuttama Prabhu has rightly mentioned about the Vaishnava perspective of environmental sustainability, I'll just give you a brief background about the environmental sustainability and the current status. From Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada states, the lakes of Vrindavan are surrounded by green grasses and various kinds of...
Dr. Srinivasulu, sorry to interrupt you. Could you put your slides on slideshow mode, please?
Okay. Is that okay?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. The status of environment when Lord Krishna was personally present approximately over 5,000 years ago, as Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya of International Society for Krishna Consciousness, mentioned in his book called Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In chapter 18, a beautiful description of Vrindavan is given. It goes, the lakes of Vrindavan are surrounded by green grasses and various kinds of lotus flowers bloom there. The air blowing in Vrindavan carries the aromatic pollen of those lotus flowers. Vrindavan is such a nice place. Flowers are always blooming, and there are various kinds of decorated deer. Birds are chirping, peacocks are crowing and dancing, and bees are humming. That was this state of environment when Lord Krishna was there around 5,000 years ago. Now you see the situation at the moment. It's completely contrast to what we had, but today the world faces the historic challenges of environmental degradation and climate change. We are having rising temperatures, melting ice packs, rising sea levels, hurricanes, droughts, floods, whatnot. And in addition to that, we have depletion of fertile soil and other factors. They are harming the quality of life and threatening social, economic, and political stability worldwide. And Srila Prabhupada, a founder Acharya of ISKCON, he has provided a what we can call as one-stop solution, that is cultivation of Krishna consciousness or Vaishnavism. And the main theme of the Vaishnavism that we are going to stress about is simple living and high thinking. His Grace Anuttama Prabhu has elaborately discussed about that. When International Society for Krishna Consciousness is established in New York in 1965, Srila Prabhupada had 7 purposes of ISKCON. One of the purposes is, that's the first purpose, is to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large and to educate all peoples in the techniques of spiritual life in order to check the imbalance of values in life and to achieve real unity and peace in the world. What we see here, despite we have an inspiring vision given by Acharyas, the IEI, the abbreviation goes ISKCON Environmental Initiative, headed by His Grace Anuttama Prabhu and other colleagues from all parts of the world. What we observe that much of ISKCON has not prioritized the values like simple living and high thinking. The lifestyles of our members, they exemplify the principle green and a simpler way of life required to teach others by example. So the context for an appeal for environmental sustainability in the institution is, our team believes that there are reasons for these shortcomings. The first reason is we have a necessity for a clear, consistent, achievable global environmental standards and guidelines in ISKCON. If you see, in ISKCON, we do have exemplary farm communities where they look after environment and they exemplify simple living, high thinking. But apart from these few exemplary communities, 90% of the institution, we have around 700 temples all over the world. Apart from these few communities, the other parts of ISKCON haven't prioritized environmentally sustainable actions, which is very visible. And the third reason, having not fully comprehending or committing to the founder's vision, we sometimes ignore environmentally conscious options and often make decisions based on convenience or short-term financial benefits. So these are the reasons they prepare the context for our green team, or you can call ISKCON Environmental Initiative. The basic objectives of ISKCON Environmental Initiative is to address these shortcomings that we just mentioned. We propose to serve our founder Acharya and leaders of our movement and the communities that we have in the movement and the members worldwide by. The first objective is researching and establishing several tiers of clear, sustainable environmental standards which can be easily adopted by ISKCON communities and members worldwide. So the main topic of my presentation will focus on this first objective. And the second objective is promoting understanding of Srila Prabhupada's teachings regarding care of earth as a core principle of Vaishnava life. And the third objective is enlisting the help of influencers. We have many leaders, influencers within the movement, such as artists, youth to inspire international and regional bodies, local communities, and individual devotees to apply these standards in their own lives and communities. So with that, the first objective of our ISKCON Environmental Initiative is to come up with environmental sustainability tiers. So these, we have developed 3 tiers of recommendations were developed with the input that we got from ISKCON devotees worldwide. And many of them are champions of simple living and high thinking. So the drafting of these sustainability tiers that we have as part of our green team, we had a long journey, and these tiers have come to a stage where we are confident to implement in our communities. So what we have to remember, particularly for the members of the community in ISKCON, that these tiers are just the guidelines, not the mandates. These tiers, they highlight important steps we can all take in 5 areas: food, energy, waste management, water, education, outreach, and culture. So these are some of the practical steps to achieve progressive levels of Krishna conscious environmentalism. So that's the a bit of background or objectives, and I've spoke about the context. Now I will take you through the sustainability. Let me just the tiers, the 3 tiers that we have developed as part of ISKCON Environmental Initiative. As I mentioned, we have 5 major categories: food, energy, waste management, water, education, outreach, and culture. Under tier 1, the main purpose is to achieve efficiency with what we have, with a little bit of planning and care. In terms of food, we aim to reduce the food waste, thereby plan for efficiency. And in energy, we minimize energy consumption. And in waste management, we reduce, reuse, and recycle responsibly. When it comes to water, we try to minimize water usage, plan for efficiency. And under education, outreach, and culture, so we teach about a simpler, more natural way of life. That's ISKCON's 6th purpose. I would like to give a bit more details about tier 1 and some aspects of the other 2 tiers, given the limitation of time that we have. Under food, efficient use of food or bhoga by smart purchasing, inventory control, and storage. And we distribute leftover prasad according to local health guidelines to the needy, distributing food to the animals, and whatever is food waste we have, we compost it instead of entering the landfill. So these are some of the aspects that we can undertake in the category of food so that we minimize the food waste. And when it comes to energy, we perform energy audit of existing buildings with the help of local agencies. We switch to energy saving globes, and we install smart thermostats, and we minimize dryer use. All these simple, easily addressable aspects that we can implement as part of Tier 1 under these categories. And when it comes to Tier 2, it's a bit more advanced. The objectives under Tier 2 would be, we use local and non-genetically modified organic boga. Even though it's difficult, this is the next level. In energy, we replace equipment with energy efficient alternatives. Under waste management, we try to expand waste management efforts to the community. Water, we transition to water efficient alternatives. And in the category of education, outreach, and culture, we expand education efforts to the community. So under Tier 2, we can demonstrate in a very, very easily approachable manner for simple living and high thinking. This is the advanced tier, Tier 3. In advanced stage, what we propose milk only from temple cows or other protected cows. And we encourage devotees to grow food at home or home usage and for offering to the Lord. And in the energy category, we go for advanced dedication to the sustainable energy, particularly installing solar panels, a change to a renewable provider. And we plan for energy efficiency, go for certification wherever it is applicable. And we try to use we try to implement procedures where we have a minimal waste. In advanced methods, like we can go for digesting methane gas to generate bioenergy from our own organic food waste. And we go for treating the water and use the recycled water for various purposes, such as non-potable water. And under education, culture, and outreach, we collaborate with local colleges, universities, government agencies to develop demonstration projects. So these are the 3 environmental sustainability TAs that we plan to implement in ISKCON communities, particularly in urban sections. So where we go from here, having achieved the clarity what we need to do, the first step for us is to identify pilot project regions. So we pick up some communities, temples, where we can implement these TAs as per their capabilities. And once we have these pilot project regions, we appoint regional green coordinators who look after the implementation of the sustainability TAs in those particular regions. So once we have the regional green coordinators, we create awareness through education and some training sessions. So this way, those people who are not yet implemented these TAs will get inspired by this simple living, high thinking approach that we are trying to inculcate using the sustainability TAs. And once we achieve the success and create that awareness, we gradually extend this concept to other regions. Once this program is successfully implemented, are being implemented in other countries or other regions, then we will have a monitoring and performance evaluation system which will coordinate and provide feedback for optimal implementation of the sustainability TS. And by doing all these things, we build the image of ISKCON as a green ambassador. Green ambassador means the society which is formed to propagate Krishna consciousness is the society that's going to care everyone. So that is inclusive, all-inclusive approach. So at the moment, we aim to build the image of ISKCON as a green champion or ambassador, so that this becomes an active preaching impression that we can leave upon the world and the other communities. So this is the best way of propagating Krishna consciousness, particularly among environmental lovers and also the educated circles. I would like to express my thanks to His Grace Anuttama Prabhu, who is the GBC of ISKCON, Minister for ISKCON Communications, who just spoke about the Vaishnava perspective of environmental sustainability. Of course, it's me. So I work as principal scientist at University of Newcastle in Australia. We have Professor Goyal, Rasavilas Prabhu, and we have Allegra from Yale University. We have Krishna Kishore Prabhu from Union Theological Seminary, USA. And we had Gopal Leela Prabhu. He's a former Bhumi Project Director, Oxford University. And we have Sanjay Gadvi. He's a management professional who runs the Lotus Trust in UK. So with that, I would like to thank the organizers of this wonderful conference for giving me this opportunity to share some of the ideas that ISKCON Environmental Initiative has towards building a sustainable community where the simple living, high thinking concept is efficiently practiced. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
Happy to
Thank
take
you.
any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Srinivasalu. Thank you so much for sticking to the timeline. Okay.
I hope
Thank
I
you.
finished within the time.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for making us aware the ISKCON Green Team, its objective in developing clear, sustainable standards, and in making us aware about the sustainability tiers. How can the food wastage can be reduced, how to minimize energy, how to minimize the water usage, and how to create the awareness about a simple and natural way of life, and how to maintain a sustainable lifestyle. And thank you so much for highlighting the point that how to create an image of ISKCON as a green ambassador in the society. Thank you so much for the detailed presentation. So we can take one or two questions. So let me see. Yes, there's a question from Lisa Pradhan. Where are the current pilot locations? How can we volunteer in this project?
At the moment, we have 3 pilot locations, one in Australia, North America, and UK. If anyone is volunteered to go for this approach, then they can contact me. So I can give my email ID to Professor Goyal. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hope Lisa
So
Pradhan got the answer.
We have these 3 regions. We have these 3 regions. Now we want to implement these TS in these 3 regions.
Good. Good that you are getting the volunteers from this conference.
We need volunteers. We need
Yes.
volunteers.
Yes. Yeah. There's a question from Hema Jha. We are coming global to local while implementing the TIRES. What is the future long-term vision of transportation, international trade, and communication globally?
Sorry, can you please repeat that?
Yeah. Her question is, we are coming global to local while implementing the TIRES. What is the future long-term vision related to transportation, international trade, and communication globally?
If I understood the question correctly, we are not coming from global to local. We are actually creating our the core principles at a global level. So we're not coming to a locally. So by this approach, we connect different communities worldwide. So that is the real meaning of globalization. And in future, the transportation and everything. So what we have to do here, sustainability has a different meaning and different approach. So from ISKCON Environment Initiative, what we are trying to do is from a very simple step. We were starting this, and our process is not going to impact the international transport, trade, and those things. So that scale, that proportion is entirely different from the scope of our initiative. So our initiative is we are making an appeal within ISKCON to create a brand image of ISKCON as a green champion. And those who are the ideal citizens, the Krishna conscious practicing people. So if we are ideal citizens, we should also demonstrate how we care for environment. By being an example, we provide that positive image in the world. So that is the real globalization that we are planning to build.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a question from one of the fellow speaker, Nandita Saikya. How can we transform Vrindavan to eco-friendly place? Has ISKCON any vision on it?
ISKCON is trying its best, but we have different projects. Since I do not know exactly the projects that are in pipeline to transform Vrindavan to, like eco-friendly or how it was, so I may not be able to answer because I don't have the details of various projects that various institutions, not only ISKCON. Yes, from ISKCON, we do care for the environment, so we do our part. But Vrindavan is a combination of 5,000 plus temples, and it's a part of government. So government is also doing its part. So unless we know what the other institutions are contributing to this environmental sustainability, particularly in Vrindavan, it's a community effort, not just ISKCON. It's a effort that we request from all the participants, including government.
The last question, it's from Aditi Mishal. It is an amazing initiative and it reinforces the importance of responsibility of a Krishna devotee towards environment. Being an international organization, what are the challenges we may face when we implement these standards globally and regional differences?
One of the main challenges that we potentially face is financial aspects and convenience. Yes, every effort has a bit of austerity and discipline. So sometimes in the name of convenience and not spending much money, so we may not be willing to implement these these TS. So those are the two challenges that we might face. But by proper education and creating awareness through training sessions, we hope we should be able to come out of these challenges. Yeah, these are the two main challenges: financial implications and the convenience.
Okay, that's a very good initiative, Prabhuji. Hope that achieves the goals and the objectives which have been framed.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Could you
Thank you very
kindly
much.
unshare your screen so that we can go for the next presentation? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
The next presentation is from Dr. Joshi on the topic Simplicity and Spirituality, the context of environmental unit Sri Govardhan. So let me introduce Dr. Joshi. Dr. Joshi is an officer of Indian Statistical Service 2006 batch, presently working as director with Ministry of Finance. He has master degrees in subjects of statistics, population science, and sustainable development, with PhD in population science, PhD in population science and demography, awarded in 2007 from International Institute for Population Sciences, Mumbai. He is a member of various professional bodies such as Population Association of America, Indian Association for the Population, Indian Society for Medical Statistics, Deccan Geographical Society, to name a few. He's also been UGC JRF 2000 and Commonwealth Scholar London 2003. He's a recipient of various international awards from USA and UK. He has published several research papers and books. He's a recipient of Best Professional Award 2015 UK and Rifisimento Award for Professional Contribution 2020, to name a few. So, Dr. Joshi, I'll hand over the platform to you for your presentation. Look forward to it. Yes, Dr. Joshi.
Thank you, Professor Visalachi. And I have already shared the screen. I think all of you are seeing.
Yes.
So the topic is, as already told, that it is simplicity and spirituality, the context of environmental units Sri Govardhan. So first I will define what is simplicity. Simplicity is a dimension of human personality which may be inherent or can also be acquired characteristics. Inherent, I mean very deeper, means it may be a transfer of the soul to soul when the person has taken birth, or it can be an acquired, I means you practice, like you do bhakti and practice in this life. So this is the simple thing I am taking. And further, simply one who has a simple living and high thinking is also a simple person. Here the meaning of simple living and high thinking is not exactly in the way that it is written here. Here simple living means we follow certain rules and go into yama and niyama of the Vaishnava principle, and high thinking means we serve God. That is very simply to say. So this simply to say is very difficult and also very easy if you follow. Further, it has been said in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu in the first chapter itself that Anya Vilasita Sunyam. A simple person does not have any other desire to serve except serving God. But when he serves gods, who can serve God? What should be the characteristic of that person? Whether he should be a complex person or a simple person, that I will further explain. Therefore, the main objective of this paper is to understand the link between simplicity, spirituality, and the environment, with a special focus on Sri Govardhan Parbat, and find the pathways of how Sri Govardhan Parbat fulfills requirement of an environmental unit. So first of all, I will come to the characteristics of a simple person according to Bhagavad Gita 13.8, 13 chapter 8 sloka. Are you all hearing? Hello?
Yes, Prabhu, we can hear you.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. So the characteristics of a simple person is humbleness, freedom from hypocrisy, non-violence, forgiveness. Simplicity itself is given another dimension to include simplicity. service of Guru, cleanliness of body and mind, steadfastness and self-control, dispassion towards the sense objects, absence of egotism, etc. There are many such references on defining simplicity, but I have taken only one. And just to, it has included many of the dimension, but and further it will go on deeper if we read and then try to understand each of the word. So how to get simplicity? I mean, what should be the characteristics of the simple person? So we have a very wonderful book that is called Nectar of Instruction. The first 4 slokas of Nectar of Instruction, that is Upadesa we say, defines the characteristics of a simple person. Means the person should be able to tolerate the urges to speak, mind's demand, actions of the anger and urges of the tongue and belly and genitals. And further, the person should have yesterday this was also, he should not have do any of the atyahar, excess of overuse of anything. That will also be brought into the environmental protection and sustainability issue. So if we take these 4 many characteristics that has been explained in the Upadesamrit, the person definitely will become a simple. He will not overuse anything. He will be in the platform of simple living and high thinking. Then how this is connected to spirituality? What it is connected to spirituality, because when we go on following these principles or these niyama, yama niyama of principles, we will find that we tend to get the love of Godhead. How? I will very briefly say, but because I'm not qualified enough to go in deep into that philosophy, I feel we will develop love of Godhead. It has been told for getting the love of Godhead, you have to serve Sri Radha Kunda. For serving Sri Radha Kunda, and there is actually no difference between Srimati Radha Rani and Radha Kunda. So you will get love of Godhead if you serve Srimati Radha Rani, because Srimati Radha Rani is the direct first and the foremost, supermost, highest, on the highest principle serving Sri Krishna. So we will get that. So we will get spirituality if we follow these principles. So simplicity and spirituality is very much interlinked, and it has been very well explained in our scriptures. How the nature comes here? We have seen that a simple person has a self-control. So he will not destroy the environment. He will not overuse anything. I have told you, atyahara, prajalpa. So, and he will have a service, forgiveness, non-violence. Non-violence, he will not destroy the environment. He will not kill animals. These are the things that comes from here. So this is, so now the linkages of simplicity, environment, and spirituality is coming. Again in Bhagavad Gita 7.1, 7th chapter, 12th sloka, it is said, Lord has said directly, know that all states of being, be they of goodness, passion, ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I am in one sense everything, but I am independent. I am not under the modes of material nature, for they are on the contrary within me. Here God is saying primarily the energies of 2 types, internal and external. The external energy is the environment. I will briefly explain here. The external energy is the environment. So we all are part of this environment. How can we interlinked? Prithvi Sukta of Atharveda has said, Samudra Vasne Prithvi. Prithvi is a part of this environment, and in text 2 of Govardhana Ashtakama, it is said that Govardhan itself has been held on the lap of Prithvi. So I will now explain here the great explanation that Shastras provide, linkers. So you become simple following certain principles that has been given, and they are simply simple and simply difficult.
Looks like the internet is
Yes,
not
down at
stable.
Dr. Joshi's end. So maybe we can wait for a minute or so that he can connect. Yes, I think he's connecting. Right.
We cannot hear you.
Dr. Joshi, you're on mute. Dr. Joshi, you're on mute.
So are you able to hear now?
Yes, perfectly,
Yes.
Dr. Joshi. Carry on.
So Shastras has explained, I've given very concrete definition of simplicity linking with spirituality and environment. If we follow them, we will be able to exactly protect the environment and become sustainable. Now in the conclusion part, I will show how it is. A simple and spiritual person loves everyone, including nature. It has been said in Sri Nisat text 1, Isa Vasyam Idam Sharmam. The God is everywhere in the even in the environment. Just our previous speaker has said, everything animate and inanimate is within the God. So even environment is within the God. So if you are loving God, you will love the environment also, and will surely will those whom you love, you will not destroy. It has been the practice of Indians to worship rivers, mountains, trees, rain, Mother Earth, which are all components of the environment. We have found that simple person has a good behavior. Good behavior results in good karma. Hence, our behavior marks simultaneous karmic reactions, which further means that our actions affect environment. So we have to do our actions according to the shastra that has been defined, so that it does not our environment is not negatively affected. Therefore, we have to maintain a good physical environment which would affect our consciousness and would help in becoming good and simple person. How we can take the help of the environment which has been provided by God to improve our consciousness. We have been doing praying to rivers, praying to trees, praying to the Mother Earth. We do Govardhan Parikrama, we do Vrindavan Parikrama, we go to Mayapur. It is all for process of taking the help of environment for improving our consciousness to become simple and spiritual. The process we have to follow. Further, Sri Govardhan culture, Vaishnav culture, and Annakuta. So, protecting environment and people. If we go to Govardhan and we see that there are many people who are distributing foods free for whom they are distributing. So they are protecting the people and they are trying to help. And so simply the way they serve the food there, it is completely protecting the environment. Though there are some practices I will not accept it has been completely protected. So whatever has not been done, if we follow the shastra, we will be able to do it. Yesterday one speaker very interestingly said we have to follow the Vaishnav culture. Vaishnav culture all over the years has the festivals. We have to follow interest. Very good festival is the Annakuta that is famous, and our Vaishnav culture has every day something to celebrate. So we can do all these practices to become simple so that our consciousness gets improved. How this can be a simple thing. How a simple person gets protected even by the environment and Lord or God. We all know the story of Sri Govardhana. which was lifted up for 7 days uninterrupted by Lord Krishna, where when there was a torrential rain. Why? To protect the belief of simple persons of Braj area in Mathura district of Uttar Pradesh. Why Lord called all the person you come under the umbrella of Sri Govardhana, I am lifting? Because they were simple and completely dependent upon the environment and God. What environment means external energy of the God. So they were also suffered by the environment itself. So God by his two energies protected them, displaying various leelas at the same time. So we say that the people of Mathura were simple person is strongly believing in God, and it has many spiritual connotations and verdicts. But the main point is that elaborated here is simplicity, spirituality, and environment is linked through environmentalism. When I say which is also provides sustainable ways of living, here I have explained sufficiently simplicity, spirituality, and environment and its interlinkage. But when I am saying environmentalism, which also provides sustainable ways of living, by I mean here environment is a way of behavior, which I have presented a paper on this environmental long back on environmentalism and contraceptive behavior. Here I mean the behavior, change of the behavior. If you are a complex person to follow certain these injunctions of the shastras, you become a environmentalism, follow the environmentalism, you change your behavior, and then your behavior and practices will automatically become sustainable, and you will fall into the way of living sustainable. Thank you for your patient hearing. So this was the interlinkage between.
Thank you, Dr. Joshi, for explaining the word simplicity in a very simple words. Thank you. Thank you for enlightening us with different ways between the interlinkages of simplicity, spirituality, and sustainability. Thank you so much. So let's take some questions. The participants, you can type your questions related to this talk so that we can take up them.
So, Dr. Joshi, I have a question. How
Yes, please.
are environmental and financial crises are related?
Yes, very interesting questions. If we protect the environment, there is then not much need of the finances, because nature has come in its own way, and it demands us to be in tandem with the nature. So Srila Prabhupada has said that we don't need much of the finances to live a simple life. He has told that you can be in tandem with the nature and very minimal resources you can live life, and the purpose of the life is itself to become God, Krishna conscious. So far, if you are becoming Krishna conscious, then you are not destroying the environment, then there will be not much need of finances. That is what I can think.
Thank you.
Dr. Joshi, there is a question from Vinay Kumar. He's saying that the austerities as said in Updeshamrita is not so simple. So please give your comments on that.
Austerity?
Austerities as said in Updeshamrita is not so simple.
Yes.
Your comments, please.
Yes. Yes. My comment is that that is what we are not able to get. If we get that, we will become simple, and we will spiritual also. So both will automatically get linked. They are very tough to follow, but not so if we go through the Yama Niyama principle, means the instruction that has been given in the Shastras, and the what the Guru has said, our Guru Maharaj has said. If we follow these Yama and Niyama, it will become very simple. Otherwise, it will always remain difficult.
There's one more question, Prabhuji, from Malini Devi Dasi. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. How do you think schools can simplify themselves, since education is the most expensive? Sometimes for no reason, which bodies or agencies in the government can take a call on this?
See, there is a concept of sustainable education, and you can do only with the spiritual practices. And when I say sustainable education, it means you give education that changes the attitudes of the student at whatever stage he is, either a child or at the university level. So if your education is not changing the attitude in consonance with the principles of the Shastras, it will not be possible to do spiritual or simple education. So spiritual education is actually simple. We have made big buildings, complex admission procedures. So we have made ourselves complex. They were always simple. So you follow these principles so that attitude can be changed from going to big buildings education to, I will not deny that big building education is not good, but unless attitude of the students are changed, it will not be a sustainable education. And this is the definition of sustainable education itself. I also have a research paper published on this. You can see, refer on the internet.
There's a question from Bhaswati Das. How can we convince people that going vegetarian is eco-friendly?
Going vegetarian is eco. Since I have not brought the data, but yesterday Professor Ramesh Goel shared how much intake of the energy you take when you eat vegetarian and non-vegetarian food. So in utilizing the vegetarian food, you consume very less energy, so you don't destroy much of the environment. So this is very much directly linked, and it has been proved. I have not brought the data. Yesterday it was presented.
Okay, thank you. The question from Kanchan Verma. I have a very general question. Being in the field of finance, many times we need to bet against loss of other. Even after knowing this, puts us in a dilemma between our karma and spirituality. What should we do in this situation? I don't know whether the question I was able to.
Being in the.
Yeah. Yes, Dr. Joshi.
Being in the field of finance, for me, or the finance itself. How? I'm not clearly understanding the question.
Yeah, that's what I think. There needs to be a clarity in the question. Kanchan, can you clarify the question again in the chat box, please? So meanwhile, we'll take up other questions. The question from Aditi Mishal. Environmental action is at the mercy of economic development and is influenced by sponsors. How can government help in this matter?
So that is why we all need to be simple and spiritual. We have not to over-exploit. We have only to, the definition of sustainability itself is to use only that what is needed. So when it is at the mercy, it is when the word you are using the mercy, of course, it means you are going to overuse. Atyahara you are going to do. So it will not be sustainable. So whatever use is there, you do, and then definitely there would be renewable process of the environment and ecosystems. then there would be no difficulties.
Dr. Joshi, can I comment on this one?
Yes, Professor Goel.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
so this is an excellent question, and as Dr. Joshi mentioned, simplicity. But at the government level, governments, they have to create incentives. If, say, for example, if I am as in industry, comply with the environmental and doing something good, I should get awards for that. So there are incentive program, and in many countries, those incentive programs do exist. So likewise, other countries can follow same protocol.
Yes. This is also a way that incentives can be done. Actually, I was not commenting deliberately, being representing ministry. Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Joshi, thank you so much for your presentation. I will move on to our next speaker.
Thank you.
Our next speaker
Thank you.
is Professor. Yeah, thank you, Joshi. Our next speaker is Professor Sachin Chaturvedi. He'll be talking about Indian philosophy and global commitments in the context of Sustainable Development Goals. Let me introduce Professor Chaturvedi. Professor Chaturvedi is currently Director General at the Research and Information System for Developing Countries, a New Delhi-based think tank. He works on issues related to development economies involving development finance, SDGs, and South-South cooperation, apart from trade, investment, and innovation linkages with special focus on WTO. He is also a member of Board of Governors, Reserve Bank of India. He has authored and edited more than 20 books, apart from contributing several chapters in the edited volumes and also publishing several research articles in prestigious journals. He's on the editorial board of several journals, including the South Asian Economic Journal, IDS Bulletin, Sussex, UK, among others. His book, The Logic of Sharing, Indian Approach to South-South Cooperation, has been acclaimed internationally as one of the best volumes on international development cooperation. He was a Global Justice Fellow at Yale University and served as a visiting professor at JNU and was a Developing Country Fellow at the University of Amsterdam, visiting fellow at the Institute of Advanced Sciences, Shimla, and visiting scholar at the German Development Institute. Professor Chaturvedi has taken keen interest in building of institutions and in launching of networks. He is credited with the launch of Network of South Think Tanks and Forum for Indian Development Cooperation. He has also credited Delhi Process, a major forum for exchange of ideas on South cooperation, South-South cooperation. So with this, I'll hand over the platform to Professor Sachin. Yeah, Professor Sachin, kindly share your screen and start the presentation.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Vishalakshi, and thanks, Professor Ramesh Goyal, for giving me this opportunity. It's a great pleasure joining, and some of the lectures that I could hear yesterday and today, absolutely amazing in terms of the bandwidth and also in terms of getting the ideas. I hope you can see the PowerPoint now.
Yes. Could you put it in slideshow mode?
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. So thanks a lot, Dr. Vishalakshi. I'm also very thankful to Dr. Ajanta, who in the beginning could lay out the broad canvas and the roadmap that we are thinking of. Yesterday, Gaurang Dasji made a very important presentation on SDGs and did discuss issues that are of great significance when we are bringing in. Being a student of international trade and economics, we have seen several Indian commitments, particularly global commitments, where conflicts have come up, like, for instance, in World Trade Organization, the employment constraints came in, the huge imports came in, and a lot of Indian industries were wiped out, and several things have happened with various different kinds of international commitments. even the structural reforms program that we launched with World Bank and IMF. Lot of things have happened today. We don't have time to discuss all that, but here is a case of sustainable development goals that I thought to pick up for this conference to discuss, where we are finding a huge convergence, a consistency in identifying the concepts that are there of what Dr. Niyati Joshi just mentioned in terms of simplicity and spirituality. And that, I think, gives us the scope in terms of identifying how we are actually trying to bring in the Vedic scientific tradition that offers a plethora of technological solutions and also the great treasure house that we need to work out. And that, I think, brings in SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, very, very closely to us. What are SDGs? We heard yesterday in our meeting. But let me point out that SDGs, they cover 5 Ps, and they talk about people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. So planet, prosperity, people, partnership, and peace. And this is largely the a sort of canvas that is captured by them. And what they try to do with these 5 Ps is to bring in triple transition. So SDGs are trying to bring in transformation in our approach on economic development, on political and social transformation that we are trying to bring in. So economic, environment, and social. Economic, environment, and social. These are the dimensions that we see in terms of the efforts that are going on. And it's a big departure from what we had seen as Millennium Development Goals, particularly in 3 broad respects. And first and foremost is that the Millennium Development Goals were too much siloed. Like, for instance, you have to focus on child mortality, you have to focus on blackboard in a school, you have to focus on access to medicine or health service. But what Sustainable Development Goals have done is to bring in a comprehensive approach to life, and not on specific parameters and putting indicators to us. So what they are trying to do is to bring in a shift from quantitative approach to qualitative approach. So it is not about how many students in a school, but what quality of education. It is not about food security, but it is about nutritional security. It is not about access to water, it is about quality of water. It is not about energy, so bulb in your home. No, it is about quality of energy. So this huge transformation that we see from MDG to SDG is bringing India's international commitment for SDGs closer home. It is bringing in closer to what we heard from Professor Ramesh Goyal yesterday on lifestyles that affect environment. He also discussed about Krishna Valley project in Hungary yesterday, but that's how I see a sort of possibility of it getting covered in our discussion. The idea, if you look at in SDGs, is about the 8 goals that are there. And these 8 goals are the first 8 of 17 goals. They cover basically what were the coverage issues in MDGs. So they cover issues that are of significance in terms of poverty alleviation, education, gender equality, child, maternal health, environment sustainability, reducing HIV/AIDS, but building global partnerships, etc. And so 1 to 7, they cover extension of MDGs basically, but 8 to 10 are instruments of development. So they bring in innovation, they bring in issues that are important in terms of financial inclusion, in terms of bringing in equity. And then 11 to 17 are our framework of sustainability. And that, if you see, is trying to bring in the ideas that are related to comprehensiveness. And all the goals are not independent of each other. They are related. Like, for instance, I have picked up just one point to show how agriculture sector is covered. So some people may say that goal 2 covers nutrition and food security, but that's not exactly the case. If you look at agriculture, it is being covered by so many other goals which are of so much significance. The poverty-related goals, so goal 1 or goal 2, of course, is the mother goal for agriculture. But then goal 6 is about water. So the idea that SDGs bring in is that when you are thinking of agriculture, think of water, think of energy, think of climate change, think of marine resources, what the agriculture outflow of water is. We heard today, earlier this evening, Adhuda Madas ji mentioned about Krishna as a playful environmentalist. So that's the kind of agriculture where people can bring in the idea of environmental values. You can bring in sustainable, inclusive economic growth with high value added footprint. So how you reduce carbon footprint of agriculture and bring in synergies across different goals. And this is what my institution, RIS, which is a think tank of the Ministry of External Affairs of the Government of India, is trying to work very closely with the principal scientific advisor, Dr. Vijay Raghavan, and his team to see how science, technology, innovation can be leveraged for delivering sustainable development goals. And this is a commitment that Prime Minister of India made in New York year before last when he visited US. So this, I think, is important in terms of pointing out how on practical grounds and in policy canvas we see. It is also important for us to see the very idea of sustainability and
Professor Sachin, you're, yeah.
Can I, so suddenly I lost my PowerPoint
Yes,
of the screen.
yes.
Can you see it now?
No, you have to share. We can hear you, but we can't see your presentation. I think you have to share it again. Yes.
Yeah. So
in slideshow mode, please.
So this idea of sustainability that came out from Brundtland Commission report and later on with UNESCO idea, it captures the concept in form of how the culture has come in. So you find a sort of polarization in the UN institutions where we could not bring in culture there. But if you look at Indian philosophy or Dharma, it brings in the very idea of not caste or creed or religion, but it brings in that karma is important. And that karma you should do. So unlike Western societies, Indian Sanatan Dharma brings in the concept of duties at the center and not so much a right-based approach or entitlement-based approach. And that's where we try to harmonize relationship between karma and artha. And that's where the rules that are laid out, which man should follow. It is about you as an individual, but also in a group. So how the religion, which is neutral on Yog Dharma scale, is trying to capture the idea, and that's where we bring in the idea of a global world family. So yesterday there was a discussion in terms of how we look at world as a family, world as one family. The prayer that is there in terms of how we say on Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadranu Pashyanti Ma Kashit Dukkha Bhagavet. So that idea of sort of welfare for everyone is the key crux that SDGs bring on table, and that is in line with what we are thinking in terms of whether welfare for all, or we are thinking of how Mother Earth is to be captured. So what we heard yesterday from Mr. Ravi Gupta, who was talking about the anthropocentrism, where man and species, they think that other than other species, man has to be at the center. And this is what Sanatana Dharma has completely we heard during my introduction, Dr. Vishalakshi mentioned about my book, Logic of Sharing from Cambridge University Press. In this book, I have discussed India's idea of giving, and that logic of sharing talks about how India is trying to go forward. So that, Dr. Vishalakshi, is the concept with which sharing has been part of it. And that's what the agriculture or goal 2 of SDG comes in when we talk about plenty of food, when we talk about sharing of food and connect that material with the spirituality. And that's the idea that we talked about. In fact, some of us who were associated with the negotiations of SDGs would recall that South Korea was the only country which proposed that SDGs should have one goal related to culture. And as was expected, many countries opposed and the idea could not fly. But that's the missing link in the triple helix, which I mentioned earlier. And Hawks and others are trying to bring out the importance of culture. And in fact, now, Dr. Vishalakshi, the important economic theories, and being an economist, I can say how the institutional perspective is changing. Earlier, many economists were saying that we need institutions, but now all of them are realizing that mere institutions would not help. You need to have culture. You need to have culture to contextualize institutions and give them energy and resilience to perform. So there may be an election commission in India, there may be an election commission in Tanzania, there may be an election commission in Mali or Ghana or in United Kingdom, or even in US we saw an election commission. But look at the level of performance, look at the level of our sort of implementation of their guidelines and their efficacy and effectiveness. So culture is very important, and culture for success in economy. And there was a question placed just in the previous session, how financial sector is important. Financial sector is less important. Culture is more important. If you have culture, then Lehman Brothers collapse would not happen. The corruptions that we are seeing would not happen. So moral compass would be there. There was a question of COVID crisis. Had there been a moral compass on in China, had moral compass been on with the World Health Organization, COVID-19 crisis would not have happened. Because humanity is losing sensitivity, empathy, compassion, dharma and duty, we are having these worldwide problems. And this is what sustainable development brings in terms of cohesion, engagement, and belongingness. And that's what I feel that social, economic, and environment have to have cross-cutting cultural presence. And that's what UN has to do. In India, we started with the idea of with the recent government on Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, participation of all and development for all. So that's something where Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina is very much the crux and the idea. And accordingly, the programs are coming up on Gandhi's philosophy of Antodaya or Sarvodaya. But this, Dr. Vishalakshi, is important in terms of how we see the relevance of globalization. And if you see Richard Bent's theory, you find that more and more globalization has happened, more and more technologies are connecting us. And Richard Baldwin says that in his latest book, to unbundling. So we saw the Industrial Revolution as the first revolution, and then we see the second revolution, which is happening where more and more people are linked into the process. And then he predicts that more intensive deindustrialization would happen in some countries, and unbundling would happen, and globalization would multiply. That's not the idea we have. A very prominent thinker and a practitioner in the labor movement, Datto Pantengadi, came out with a book called We have a holistic approach where we balance material prosperity against the spiritual content, we would not go forward. And that's the idea of Sanatana Dharma and its policy. The Vasudev Kutumbakam as the central tenet of our idea of one world is something that has to be taken in. I see that I'm losing my time fast, so I would try to be quick. But there are some of these issues where we need to correct our understanding on how we globalize, how we approach globalization, how we create scope for everyone's assurance on job and self-engagement when it comes to production, technology, and trying to have space for everyone. So the growth that has happened has created a disbalance in ecosystem where human species are thinking that they are at the center and they have the right to live. And as a result, we are losing many other species across the world, and that's where we need to see how the idea of excessive consumption, pollution, as Shriman Anuttam Dasji showed the photograph in the backdrop of the Taj Mahal was so clear in terms of what we are doing with the rivers. So that's where we need to work it out, and we need to see how issues are in terms of our consciousness. And that's where a lot of us are now working in terms of changing the approach. Like, for instance, in 1930s, we adopted the idea of gross domestic product, GDP, which is so much money-centric. And as a result, the whole process is how much economic size is expanding, you measure GDP. Now, from our institute, RIS, we have proposed that the idea of well-being should come in. So you should have a global wellness index. So measure people's balance with their resources around them, measure what is environmentally sustainable and is not contributing to carbon footprint. That should be your scale of progress, and not the global gross domestic product. So if you have to change several ideas, and that's where globalization is to be revisited. And that's why I'm saying that international commitments are there, but we need to work out and we need to revisit the idea of development. We need to see what development model we follow. If we follow the idea of ethics, politics as one basket, where, as I said, moral compass is important. Moral compass is important for economics. It is important to continue with culture and ecology together for justice and humanity. So these factors are interdependent, and they bring in India's international commitment, but global commitment on how we are going to go forward. My institute is very closely involved in India's presidency of BRICS, which is right now in this year, and for G20 presidency in the coming years. So some of these elements should become part of our narrative, our discussions in terms of access, equity, inclusion, ethics, and governance, connecting with our oceans, the raw material that we see, and responsible research and innovation that are there. And if you see the whole plethora of issues where Indian traditional system would have identified, we need to revisit the idea of economic development. We need to revisit how our international commitments, be that with World Bank or IMF or many other donors to India, we would have to see this balance that is there at various levels, and we create a space for various actors. I'm so glad that in the previous session the aparigraha was mentioned, and that's where Indian philosophy is different. It is different in terms of compartmentalized thinking, what World Bank, IMF, the Washington Consensus has given us, then the integrated thinking that we have, and man, not just a material being, but man with intellectual and well-being part of it. So Artha Kama, but driven by the Purushartha, and also happiness for oneself, for happiness for all. So instead of individual being at the center, the society and the larger idea of engaging with everyone. So that I think is important. Just last a few lines. I feel that this idea of one world is extremely important, and India's international commitment should get into the idea of one world, and we should bring in the idea of service and compassion, the interconnectedness and interdependence. Both are extremely important, and from that point of view, the flexibility that is needed is something that we can talk about and see in terms of what dimensions are of significance when it is needed to go forward. So with these words, Professor Vishalakshi, I would stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sachin. I do agree with you that the values and the moral compass should be a part for effective implementation. And thank you so much for giving an exhaustive presentation on Indian philosophy and its global commitments. Thank you so much for highlighting the conceptual differences between the Millennium Development Goals and Sustainable Development Goals. Now we have understood that how the Millennium Development Goals transform to Sustainable Development Goals, and you have beautifully explained it with an example of agriculture, which is very interlinked with the different Sustainable Development Goals. Thanks so much for highlighting the Yug Dharma, an Indian perspective, and the missing link in the SDGs, that is the moral compass and the culture, which is very important to achieve the objectives of the SDG. Thank you for your exhaustive lecture. Thank you so much. So I think we have many questions. So I'll take up one by one. There's a question from Pavitra Mahale. Absolutely a very valid point, Professor Sachin. Values of morality, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the core value of Sanatana Dharma, needs to be taken up at UN. He's appreciating you for these words. Thank you so much. There's a question from Aditi Mishal, that such a necessary change in parameter of development, Global Wellness Index. It's much awaited and will be great contribution from RIS.
Thank you. I think Dr. Vishalakshi, I have just posted the website of RIS. So those who are interested in tracking down our work in SDGs and on this index, they can visit our website.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Professor Sachin. There's one more question from Aditi Mishal. With sheer numbers, we have a lot of competition in India. How can we make available more opportunities for young minds who want to create change?
I think first and foremost, we would have to articulate what kind of change actually we are looking at, what dimensions. And I think there is now the COVID crisis and the consistent lockdowns have made it very clear that without environment protection, there is no change possible. And change is required in our lifestyle. The change is required in terms of what we have what we should have been doing and what we are doing now. And that, I think, requires a huge metamorphosis in our approach of development, of how we bring in what in last 3 lectures we have discussed, the idea of simplicity and spirituality. And that, I think, would be the basis for us, how we consume less. And there are a lot of stories of Buddhist monks who were penalized in Thailand for preaching aparigraha. US was opposing this with Thai government of stopping these monks to spread these kind of ideas of consuming less. In fact, the stock exchanges start wondering if consumption reduces, because this whole economy is running on consumption. So we would have to see that this change in our mindsets happen. And we do not go by consumption which is not sustainable. And we have seen this. All full of our almirahs with so much wardrobe, so rich wardrobe, and you can't go out anywhere. So much is our loss. So I think my youngsters can bring in this mega change that is required.
Yes, absolutely, Professor Sachin. There's a question from our previous speaker, Dr. Joshi. He says that the definition of development includes culture. What is your comment?
Absolutely. That's what I was saying, that India's development paradigm has missed out on culture. And we think that culture is religion, and religion is in a secular state to be kept out, which is so a misconcept that we have propelled and have absorbed for our own policy making. Culture is the base, culture is important, and culture has to be woven in our national institutions. Culture is not religion. Culture is our faith in terms of how we bring in the idea of simplicity and spirituality. You may follow any religion, but simplicity and spirituality are not political in the sense that we see religion in. So I think it is important for us to bring in culture. In fact, now, as you would appreciate, several studies coming out by economists who are saying that for any effective institution building, you need to have culture as a important component. Unfortunately, economists based in the United States of America have completely rejected this idea. They have never believed in it. They have been leading what is called as monetarist school, and they believe that this monetarist school can bring in change because you believe in monetary theory, the Chicago school. And the Chicago school has been saying that if you bring in macroeconomic variables in shape, economic growth can happen. And what are these macroeconomic variables? These are GDP, the balance of payment, foreign exchange, inflation. So just keep all of them in order and economic growth would happen. The second school came from structuralists, that you change the structure and the growth would happen. India, according to Sanatan Dharma, was saying that culture is the crux. Bring in harmony in social, economic, and environment along with culture as a pivot. We neglected that. We followed from 1991 economic reforms, the monetarist school, the prescription of the World Bank and IMF. And before that, we were trying the outdated Russian model of state-led intervention. And we have collapsed. Now time has come that with climate change, we are realizing that until and unless each individual is responsible, each citizen is responsible, things would never change. You throw out, as Shriman Artam Dasji was saying, that you throw out from train whatever you are consuming, and you would have plastics piled all across. So we need cultural change, we need change in our thought process, and that can happen only when each citizen is worked upon, and we inspire, motivate, and bring in the idea of a collective action and collective commitment for public goods that are being created. So we cannot follow what US has done. US development model has done whatever they had to do. China has done whatever China had to achieve. If India has to progress, India has to progress with culture, and culture can only transform. No military power like China and no capital power like US can do that for us. We would have to realize the centrality of culture, and that can only bring in the change. And as you rightly said, Dr. Niyati Joshi, it is about spirituality, and it is about simplicity. And that's where the domain of culture would come in our growth process and in our paradigm of economic development.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. This is Ramesh, Sachin. Wonderful, wonderful points. Just a couple of comments and any question. Anupma, Seema Anupma Das said, oh, excellent point about culture transformation actually in the chat box. So my question is, and I very well agree with you that, you know, culture and religion are two different things, and people oftentimes tend to mingle those two. My question is at the root level, we know that the change has to come from the society, from our youth. So are there any programs in place, or, you know, your office or Government of India thinking about to bring these changes at the education level, you know, elementary level or high school or school levels?
Absolutely right, Professor Goyal. If you look at the new education policy, there is a huge space for bringing in spirituality, bringing in centrality of our individual thought processes. So new windows are being created. Of course, as you know, this government has several well-wishers who are in different political parties which are not in power, and some of them are in some states. So they have been opposing the idea of bringing in culture on name of religion and then mix up the two. But I think the education policy would be an important instrument to, as I said in the beginning, to work upon our young citizens, to focus on our young children in the schools, to emphasize upon the idea of responsibility of citizens. And this, I think, is a cultural change that we require. And this change has not happened. And that's where the character building of the nation is of importance. I hope this new policy, education policy, would not remain a policy. It would be implemented. And if it is implemented with full earnestness, I'm sure it would have all the windows to bring in this change.
Wonderful point. Thank you so much.
Yes, Professor Sachin. Thank you, Professor Sachin.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So let's move on to the last presentation by Dr. Nandita Saikia. She would be presenting about bringing spirituality to the debate on population growth and environmental sustainability. So welcome, Dr. Nandita. So let me introduce you to the audience. Dr. Nandita is an assistant professor of population studies at JNU, New Delhi. She holds an MPhil and PhD from the International Institute for Population Sciences, Mumbai. She has worked at Max Planck Institute for Demographic Research, Germany, and at the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis in Austria. She has served as an assistant professor at the Population Research Center, Institute of Economic Growth for 2 years. Her research interest lies in formal demography or mathematical and statistic relations between demographic measures, mortality, and cause of death studies using life tables. Socioeconomic and religious inequalities in health, disability analysis, quality of demographic data, and undocumented immigration. Dr. Saikia has published many articles in high impact factor journals and received several awards. I welcome you, Dr. Nandita. The floor is yours now.
Thank you, Professor Vijayalakshmi. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, perfectly. Kindly go ahead.
Yes. Good evening to all. At the outset, I want to thank Institute for Science and Spirituality for organizing this wonderful conference and also to be a speaker of this conference. As Professor Vijayalakshmi has introduced me, I'm a trained statistician and demographer working in the field of population and health studies. So usually I do a lot of data analysis and present my all stuff through empirical evidence. However, today's talk is slightly different. It is not much with data, but with some arguments to bring spirituality to the debate on population growth, health, and environmental sustainability. So background is like this. Whenever we hear population health and population growth, health and environmental sustainability, there are the two key points pop up to our mind. One is Millennium Development Goals and another is Sustainable Development Goals. While Millennium Development Goal was introduced in 2000 year, and after 15 years it was evaluated, and as this is still undergoing, it has started in 2015 and it will be finally evaluated by 2030. As my previous speaker has pointed out, that between MDG and SDG, there are quite resemblance, but yet SDG is more inclusive. So in MDG, out of 8 different goals, 4 goals are directly linked with population health indicator. Whereas in SDG, out of many goals, many indicators, I would say all of them are directly, very strongly or indirectly related to population size, growth, and health. However, the main point is that the main message is that in both SDG and MDG is that this wants to increase the quality of life, reduce inequality across different social groups, maybe gender, maybe geographical geographical places or socioeconomic characteristics by, say, rural, urban, rich, poor, different religion, and so on. So the main objectives of these two are in such a way that these are the global objective, and these are in such a highlighted in few years, for which we have numerous research on numerous empirical research and discussion about these topics in public forums, and particularly in our discipline where we work as a demographer or population scientist. We keep on doing empirical research. We have evaluated where India stands in MDG and where now India is going to work, or whether India is able to achieve SDG or not, what are the different priorities and so on. So there has been a lot of discussion, and there has been discussion what should be the role of government, how government should act, how donors should act to intervene, and how researchers should identify the vulnerable groups and suggest evidence policies so that everyone is inclusive, everyone's quality of life increases. So on this basis of these resources, there are already a list of do's and do nots, and those are discussed everywhere. Again, for example, we should use lesser energy, we should not waste much water, we should consume less, plant more trees, and so on. Then if these things are available, yet we do not see much behavioral shift from what is used to be and what is now. There has not been much change in our lifestyle. In fact, it has been more and more towards consumerism, what we have been discussing last few sessions. So why it is happening? And if I want to ask myself this question, then definitely there will be certain points I have to answer myself. For example, how to stop temptation. For example, I have a lot of, I'm getting good salary, I have money, I don't have much other social family responsibilities. I can definitely wear a dress of 50,000, say Muga silk or some other silk, and show others my aristocracy. Or those people who are relatively less economically well off, they might not have money for an extravagant marriage, but still they want to go for such kind of social rituals just for to show them that such society is doing, and that is what is the need. Again, another question it may come that I may start consuming less. I may start a very simple life without much extravaganza. Maybe I'm starting for this month and I'm continuing only for a month, and after that I'm again shifting to the usual one. I'm not able to be consistent with what principle I want to follow. Then another question can be, why should I spend my hard-earned money for the others? What can inspire me to sacrifice money particularly? Then another concern or question it can come, nobody is seeing me. For example, if I'm using energy more, there is no one to evaluate me, no one to question me, or not just in use of energy, or it can be a different kind of relationship, it can be any kind of extra consumption we do. So if nobody is seeing me, nothing will happen to me, so I can do anything what I wish for. So all these points actually can be covered under the umbrella of only spirituality. This original driver of all such problems are actually lack of spirituality. Now coming to what is spirituality, most of the time when we speak about spirituality in our usual day-to-day conversation among youngsters, among our society, spirituality becomes a kind of equivalent to religion, and a lot of people, in number of them would show that it is something very not much relevant to our modern life. Because there has been a lot of confusion over the term spirituality itself. So in my understanding, spirituality is the self-science or self-management based on various experiments on self and nature. It is rather a process and consistent effort for self-realization, for self-discovery, and it may not be very easy. And yes, there is a high correlation between spirituality and religion. However, there are differences too. A spiritual practitioner may or may not be religious, and similarly, a religious person may or may not be spiritual. Spirituality includes everyone who believes in the formless God with form, or who spends time with self or nature to find out the true nature of the self. So one can choose the God. It can be form and formless God, but point is that one has to go through the process. It is beyond sectarian belief. It is inclusive and full of compassion. Rather than when we speak about religion, it can be a blind worshipping method without realization or without just under someone's instruction. Whereas a spiritualist seeks the truth and experiment by applying easy and challenging steps to self, and then finally surrender to the supreme power. And the spiritualists usually go through the process of seeking, experimenting, and then believing it. The spirituality is the process of connecting the true nature which is hidden within everyone. Everyone is Brahman, everyone is Buddha, or everyone has the part of that supreme Godhead. But we need to connect always. And since the time immemorial, human beings have been adopting numerous methods to connect with themselves and connect with the supreme nature. Now, the question is, how does spirituality can impact? Spirituality, again, it is not exactly religion. A higher version of religion might be finding the true nature of self, and by that we can connect with the supreme God, supreme personality. We call him Shri Krishna, It can be also called by different names, by God, Paramatma's higher self, cosmic power, mystic law, and many other belief. They are described in different words, but actually it is the same. And from there, once we connect with that, then connect with supreme power, we get a lot of inspiration for the harmonious existence, and then we can refine ourselves at individual level. We can refine our own characteristics, and which further affects population growth, health, and environmental sustainability. In Bhagavad Gita particularly, it has been said that how can we get inspiration? We keep on chanting the name of Lord Krishna, Lord, and that's how we can refine. We go through a great process, and that's how we can develop all the true nature within us. So here I'm taking three different components: population growth, health, and environment, where I want to say that spirituality is the driving force related to the population growth, health, and environmental sustainability. And I want to take few examples of Vedic philosophy on spirituality. So example first, spirituality impacts unwanted population growth. Well, while in general, whenever it comes for the religious discourse, population has been always considered as a resource. And yes, it is true, but not necessarily every time. Because in religious dogma, a lot of time populations are considered blindly as a resource because it has crucial role linked to its political dominance. However, when we go for Bhagavad Gita description, although usually the children are considered as a resource, he also says that Supreme Personality also says that how unwanted population creates havoc in the society. In the first chapter, Lord Sri Krishna says in text 41 that an increase of unwanted population certainly hellish life. So what he says that population is important, but at the same time, if population is unwanted, it may create problem in resources. It can create environmental sustainability, and it can finally create affect our health. Of course, there has been always a debate what should be the optimum population, and from Bhagavad Gita perspective, one can argue that optimum population size can be decided by the individual as well as community level perspective, keeping our consciousness level very high. Secondly, when we are talking about unwanted population, and in modern era, we always emphasize that using a family planning method can control the population, which can have further impact on quality of life and can reduce problem in environment. However, this is itself is not enough, because if somebody using family planning method with the objective to reduce number of children, but at the same time just to increase the quality of materialistic life, that will be further problematic. For example, we have seen yesterday's presentation by Professor Goel, where when there are the very high income countries, although they have less number of family members, less number of children, they are exposing, they are giving more carbon footprints than those people, the poor income countries where they have more number of children. So it is not just only one that we emphasize blindly on the population size, or we emphasize blind use of family planning method blindly to increase our quality of materialistic life. If we take the arguments, examples from Vedic principle, Bhagavad Gita, we can actually go for a better situation, harmonious situation of population size, which can have good impact on our health and climate. Example 2 is spirituality impacts health, both mental and physical health. We have been talking in our all research, population health research. There has been flood of big data, and we are analyzing. We are always analyzing population health indicators of disease, cause of death, and so on. I also do the same. However, we need to remember that physical health itself does not represent societal well-being. There has to be mental health, and now, of course, mental health is becoming a topic of interest. However, and we are finding, in fact, that mental health are equally affecting people's physical health. So, for example, disease like cancer, diabetes are actually a result of poor mental health and vice versa. So again, if we go to the root cause, we find actually spirituality can bring happiness to the soul, and the soul happiness can be converted to mental peace and good physical health. There has been significant research on neurological and physical psychological aspect. Interestingly, 5,000 years ago, in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna spoke several layers of our mind, intelligence, and ego, and Lord finally identified soul as a supreme energy. He directed Arjuna not to involve in sense gratification, and which is not so easy, and which is the ultimate reason for all disturbance around us. Also, how spirituality can actually help give us a positive health. Even the imagination of a supreme personality Krishna itself inspires us to be very happy, attractive, and have successful relationship. He sets the ideal where he is the supreme yogi. His mind, body, soul is every time in the same place. He is attracting from the animals to Brajabahu to his friends, his gurus, guru matas, kings, everyone. There is no one who does not love him. And he is 100% successful in his relationship. And we found actually now there are many studies which are showing that successful relationships are the most important ingredient of our happy life. So when we speak about Krishna, then we always imagine only the blessings, love, and kindness and compassion. So that is also a fact that can also affect our spiritual health, and finally, it can impact our physical and mental health. In Bhagavad Gita, there has been a direction of spiritually inclined food related behaviors, sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. Interestingly, now modern science have also found that animal has feelings, and we get those feelings when we eat them. So when we go for sattvic foods where there is no animal and so on, it further affects our soul, mind, intelligence, ego, and everything. And finally, it makes us happy. And I think all of us know well that how sattvic food is highly associated with lower level of diabetes disease and higher immunity system. Again, just coming to this point, it is not easy to and win the temptation. And here, only Krishna consciousness or good consciousness can change their lifestyle without compromising the level of happiness. A spiritualist can live the longest life. Because I work on life expectancy, mortality, and disability related issues, I know that there has been a kind of, we use a life expectancy at birth, average number of years a person lives. We analyzed all those, and this question often comes to my mind, and that if a person is selectively having better health by birth because of whatever the past karma and so on, some people are by birth, they are strong, they're selective. And then if they are also able to attain materialistic achievement like higher education, wealth, and so on, and finally, if they are spiritually progressed. So far in our research, we are talking only the first two components. The first component is known as mortality selection, and other is that we say that socioeconomically advantaged people. We are still missing the third component. But if we combine this third component with first two, actually, there has not been much research on that. But I believe that there will be a great interesting finding. At the moment, we are seeing that life expectancy at birth for a group of people like most advanced countries like South Korea and Japan, we have the 85, 86 life expectancy at birth. But if it is possible to a group of population which are following all these three characteristics equally, we may go for much higher life expectancy, what we are looking for. And not just life expectancy at birth, but also disability, disease-free long life. We have some example. I would draw your attention to 15th century Vaishnava saint from Assam. He is Srimanta Sankaradeva, who has lived total 119 years, which his date of birth is documented because he was born in king's family, and he has started this new Vaishnavism in Assam, and he lived on nearly 120 years. Another saint, Sri Chand, who is the son of Guru Nanak and who was propagator of very close spirituality like Vaishnavism, Udasi Vakat, who was remaining detached. He has lived like 134 years. And also, recently I have come across several books where particularly Radhanath Swami's book, The American Monk, Journey Home, where we find that he has referred many Himalayan yogis who are living very long time, and people does not know how many years maybe they are living. It may be 200 years or 150 years. At the moment, it is very difficult to believe on this kind of stuff. But I think if these all three components are matched, then a person can really live a very long life, and he can be happy as well as he can contribute to the welfare of the society. Finally, the example 3, spirituality impacts environment. A lot has been discussed from yesterday about this topic. I would rather reiterate this issue. A spiritual person can look for a harmonious relationship with nature. They never try to be masters of nature. Instead, they like to coexist peacefully. There are several Western philosophers, I would not name now. It was always seen that if we conquer the nature, we can be the master. But I think that approach is quite devastating, and we are really now understanding in the face of different disaster, pandemics, and mental disorder, and so on, we are finding that it is nature. We should never try to be master of nature, but we should exist peacefully with them, coexist peacefully with them. And that has been always shown by India's spiritual leaders. For example, the sadhus living in Himalayas have yogic powers, very mystical powers. They can do wonderful. Yet they coexist together with the flora and fauna without misusing mystic power to them. There are many slokas in Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic texts, which all of you know more than me, in fact. And what is the main principle here? To see living and non-living beings with compassion. And there has been discussion about the 5 elements of life. We see all those whatever form. It can be in the form of Mother Goddess, Mother Earth, Vayu as a Devata, and so on. But main point is that we are seeing them not just in non-living beings, but we are seeing them something much higher level, contributing our life, contributing to our breath or everything. And then another is that in Bhagavad Gita, again, it has been said that not to see anyone man as a body, not as a teacher, not as a high caste, low caste, rich, poor, or whatever. It is rather to be seen as a body. I am not that body. I am something beyond. And once I understand that then it becomes very, very easy for us to coexist with the environment. Lord Krishna suggests to each should be solved equally. If human beings in true sense can connect themselves with these teachings, it might be easier to save this planet. His Holiness Radhanath Swami once said, "Climate will not change unless we human beings change." These changes has to come from spiritual practices. Finally, Sadvik food has impact on health, but at the same time, it has great impact on environmental sustainability. The easiest way of explaining is that reduction in meat consumption can lead so many benefits, reduction of majority of the greenhouse gases emission. So with this example, I want to discuss my points once again. The environment will not change if human beings are not changed. Scientists can't invent advanced technologies, but to what level and how those technologies can be used have to be decided by human population. Unless there is an inner revolution by human population, misuse of technology to feed anger, greed, and lust will be high. The practice of spirituality may bring tremendous behavioral change, what we are talking now in different modern language like behavioral economics, behavioral psychology, and so on. But actually the root of everything, all this behavior is actually the spirituality. One other point I want to highlight, that if spirituality helps, should we impose the rules leading to spirituality on society? For example, we have been discussing that vegetarian, and being vegetarian has a great contribution to the environment. Then should we impose such kind of rules? In my view, that we shouldn't, because if an individual's food habit is based on family backgrounds, ecological environment, food availability, and so on, so rather than imposing any rule, we should or we lure them for benefit of material gain. Spiritual leaders' text should inspire people for long-term happy healthy life, to follow this kind of stuff. And this is the usual principle of India, not imposing, rather inspiring. This has been shown always by our spiritual leaders. My conclusion is that when human beings can see the development paradigm through a spiritual eye, it leads long-term sustainability, equality, what has been talked in MDG and SDGs. However, it is important to integrate this spirituality with the education system, and we hope, as the previous speakers also said, that in NEP, National Education Policy 2020 has a great scope to preach spirituality. But as a population researcher, I have been attending all important conferences and seminars, debates, and so on. I have not seen, and I found that there is great absence of concept of spirituality in this area, this subject. So there is a need to conduct empirical research how spiritual practices are helping population growth, health, and environmental sustainability. For example, this year we are organizing International Unions on Scientific Study of Population. This is a very old and established body of population studies. We are organizing fourth international conference in India virtually. But we do not find there is a sub team on spirituality and culture, how that is helpful for environment. So I feel that there is a great need to include this kind of topics in all mainstream conferences and seminars in population health and environment, and because this will lead people's acceptance towards spirituality, not just people's, like young researchers, youngsters, academicians, educational instructors, and so on. That's all. Thank you. These are my references.
Thank you, Dr. Nandita, for a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for sticking to the timeline. Okay, you speakers have made my job very simple. You speakers, all the speakers were very disciplined related to the timeline. Thank you so much. Thank you for highlighting the problems because of lack of spirituality and how spirituality can impact one's own individuality when we connect to the supreme power. Thank you for giving the examples how spirituality and unwanted population growth are related with reference to Bhagavad Gita. Thank you so much. And at the end, thank you for highlighting how a spiritual life can be a healthier and have a longevity into it. Thank you so much. So let's take up some questions. Let me see. There's a question from Jay Prakash. Good effort, Dr. Nandita, to relate spirituality and population issues. I will suggest to use the term population sustainability than population growth. What is your comment?
Yes, I think that's a wonderful comment. We have to use population growth as well as population sustainability. It will depend on what context we are saying. So if we just want to see what kind of changes it has been happening over the time, technically, then we have to go for population growth. However, when we are talking about kind of optimum population growth, then we can go for population sustainability. Thank you.
Yeah, very well said, Dr. Nandita. I have a small question.
Sure.
Do we have any studies done related to how the spirituality is able to sustain the growth of the population, and how they are interrelated as such?
Thank you, ma'am. This is the whole point I am bringing. In fact, because I have been working in this area for quite at least 7-8 years now, and I have been attending most important conferences and seminars and so on. There are many studies on population growth. We are emphasizing always on use of family planning method, and what are the drivers like education, wealth index, different and religion and different geographical locations importance on fertility or population growth. However, there has not been much discussion, almost zero discussion on spirituality association with population. Therefore, that is what is my whole point, that we should bring this to this debate on population. And I'm happy yesterday to see that Govardhan Eco Village project is associating with UN programs. In fact, most of our population works because it is highly applied and connected to population composition, size, and ultimate objective of keeping a high quality life. Most of our population indicators are used by UN, and however, this connection is missing between spirituality and sustainability and health. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. With that, we'll come to the end of the last session. Thank you. Thank you so much to all the speakers and participants. And once again, I thank the organizers for giving me these opportunities to chair the session. I'll now hand over the platform to the organizers. Over to you, the organizers.
So we will have Mr. Praveen Kumar conclude the session and say a few words about Institute of Science and Spirituality, and then we'll have vote of thanks by Dr. Neeti Joshi, and then we'll have closing remarks. Mr. Praveen Kumar, please.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Ramesh. So this was a wonderful conference, 4 sessions, 2 days since yesterday morning. And it was especially, I think, difficult for Professor Ramesh because he's in different time zone, and especially getting up in the night and then morning and then noon and again late in the night. It was really difficult for you, I think. But anyway, this was really wonderful. And I remember this is some kind of, there are various kind of yajna mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. And one of them is, Gyan Yajna, where the motive is to please the Lord, right? Who is the source of all material and spiritual world. So in this particular conference, all the speakers, the participants, and everyone, the focus was to reach to the root cause of all issues and how to solve that by making everyone understand the idea that how spirituality is very important. Even the last speaker, and starting from the first speaker till the last speaker, the same message is coming out, that how the spirituality is the basis for everything. And if we become spiritual, and then automatically the other problems in the society, whatever problem we are discussing about the sustainability, these issues can be resolved. So ISS was founded almost 10 years back. It's a part of ISKCON Delhi. And the initiative, the motive of the initiative was to specifically deliberate on the topics, spiritual topics in a scientific manner, so that the people who really want to understand. Sometimes people say that religion is blind faith, or spirituality is nothing, just mental phenomena and nothing more than that. That is sentimental phenomena. So, Institute for Science and Spirituality was founded specifically to address this issue that spirituality or religion, they are the faces of the same coin, like the practical and theory part in a science. So spirituality. So the institute was founded to address this issue that we can understand religion, we can practice religion, we can understand, we can practice spirituality with a even the scientific people can do that. And if we think deeply enough, then we can understand that how spirituality is also a science. So this is the focus of Institute for Science and Spirituality, and we invite all the like-minded people who think in the same way and who want to deliberate on this topic to be a part of Institute for Science and Spirituality and contribute also in the ISS mission. So it was a wonderful conference, and really, if I was seeing the feedback also, which I received in the first session, second session, third session, all wonderful feedback. People really want that these kind of seminars or conference should happen again, and some of the feedbacks were that when we are doing the next time. So that I think Professor Goel can speak on that, when the next conference can be done on this sustainability, spirituality, and simplicity. It's a unique idea and very well received by the scientific community. Okay, now coming to the awards, there were a few awards which need to be given. So can somebody show? Yeah, so this is the paper presentation award. The three best papers, the award goes to, the first award goes to Dr. Mamta Mahanti. The topic was integrating the sublime in colonial era, the simple jackpot model for ideal schools. And the second best was by Sean Clark, limiting climate change through spirituality. And the third best is Linto Paul Jacob by Linto Paul Jacob. And the topic was historical analysis of environmental ethics and the relevance of eco-spirituality in India's future. So I congratulate the winners for their wonderful work and wonderful research and their thought process, which went into presenting these papers. And also, next, I think there is next slide. Yeah, and the next, there was another prizes are for 3S ambassadors. These are the young college girls, and wonderful. These students, basically, they are college students, and they were part of our program, and they were ambassadors, campus ambassadors program, where they were encouraging people and their colleagues and everyone alike to participate in this wonderful conference. So they were really trying hard day and night for encouraging people, for discussing with them, making them understand what this conference is all about. And so it's a real hard work by them. And the conference is definitely one of the factor for success of the conference is because of our ambassadors. So just a token prize from our side. The first prize goes to Manushi Prajapati, a cash prize of 3,000. Tanisha Dawn, cash price of rupees 1,000, and Meenal Parashar, cash price of rupees 1,000. And the prices will be given to you within the next week time. So kindly share. Our team will be in touch with you to get your account numbers, and the money will be transferred to you. So now further announcements. I think there are more announcements. Yes. So just I'll take one more minute. So as I said that Institute for Science and Spirituality's focus is to understand science understand spirituality, or understand science in a spiritual manner, and vice versa. So parallelly, along with the various conferences and seminars, we also do completely purely spiritual programs also, to understand, and not only to understand theoretically, but also practice it. Okay, so we teach them how to practice spiritual life in our real, day-to-day life, whether we are a student, whether we are a researcher or teachers, professors, or whatever we are in our whichever state of life we are in, so we can practice spiritual life. Okay, so this Bhagavad Gita course we have launched. It's 18 chapters in 18 sessions course, and every Saturday, this is a certificate course, and every Saturday starting from 5th June, 5:30 to 7 p.m. This program will start. So you can go to visit the ISS website, and or the phone number, this WhatsApp number is also mentioned. You can WhatsApp on this number, and then there also you can get the information, or you can directly go to the ISS website and register yourself for the course. And next, yeah. So as I said that Institute for Science and Spirituality is every Sunday we have seminar series we are organizing every Sunday 5:30 p.m. So you can participate in that. These are free seminars, and the next seminar is will be by Professor Gopal Gupta. He's a distinguished professor in ethics at Aurora University, Illinois, and the topic is taking guidance from Bhagavad Gita in the battle against COVID pandemic. So wonderful topic in today's scenario. So please take help from this topic. And the next series, a 3-session series, will be taken by Mr. Ashish Dalela. He's an acclaimed author of 17 books on Vedic science, Shabda publications. Then the topic is appreciating and advancing towards Vedic science. And this will be starting from 6th June. Again, the time will remain same, 5:30 p.m. every Sunday. So, and the next is our forthcoming conference in December. Yes, 18th and 19th of December 2021. This will be the theme of our forthcoming conference, Vedantic and Scientific Perspective on the Mystery of Life and Cosmos, investigating the role of randomness and chance. So further information will be available on the ISS website, and more and more details will be keep on adding about this conference. And this is going to be a wonderful conference. You can understand from the theme of the conference itself that it will ponder upon the mysteries of life and cosmos. So I invite all of you to be connected with the Institute for Science and Spirituality for both the regions, to understand spirituality or religion in a scientific manner, and also to practice spiritual life actually as per the scriptures. So thanks a lot for the for your participations. And this is ISS presence on social media. You can visit our website. We are available on YouTube. You can go to our YouTube channel and watch the videos. We are available on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and this is our WhatsApp number. So I now hand over to Professor Ramesh for his comments, and then Dr. Niyati Joshi for vote of thanks. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Praveen. It's wonderful, and It's so good to see so many efforts by ISS, and of course, these are much needed. So I'll have some closing remarks, and then Dr. Niti Joshi can say a word of thanks. So I will start with a quote, and the quote goes like, the more clearly we can focus our attention on the wonders, realities, and the fine details of this universe, the less taste we shall have for its destruction. This was the hidden theme of this conference. How can we start learning how to appreciate the creator of this universe and not exploit the universe? In this conference, we emphasize that an investment is not an investment if it destroys our planet. I personally was very happy that we could successfully convey these excellent messages through different presentations. I would like to seek blessings of His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, without whose vision we would not be able to even think about this conference. I pay my tributes to the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada, founder Acharya of ISKCON. The conference theme is based on Srila Prabhupada's teaching and books. I would like to express my sincere thanks to Mr. Praveen Kumar, Director of Institute of Science and Spirituality, for providing us ISS platform to host this unique conference. Without his vision, it would not have been possible for us to host and then successfully execute this conference. I also take this opportunity to thank many people who constantly helped us behind the scenes in various roles. More specifically, Dr. Jyotiranjan Berua, Conference General Secretary, who smartly planned and supervised the communications, web page design, and getting things mobilized. The advertisement team was led by Sushain, Srikant Govind, Rakesh, Ajay, and many more. Call for abstract review and conference proceedings were handled by Dr. Suresh Bhalla from IIT Delhi. Dr. Niti Joshi was instrumental in getting us connected with different dignitaries and overall conference planning. My remarks would not be complete without acknowledging students and student ambassadors. Student interest in this conference was inspiring and a trendsetter. We were highly encouraged by their enthusiasm and involvement. This conference was unique. Its planning started almost 2 years back with aggressive efforts in the last 5 months. From this conference, we learned how Sanatan way of living, as highlighted by our chief guest, Dr. Rajinder Singh, can combat climate change. We learned some astonishing facts, such as societal consumerism affecting our environmental sustainability, the role of eco-theology in environmental sustainability, and how ISKCON has been very active in addressing United Nations 7 Sustainable Development Goals, and how bamboo could be successfully used in construction and other purposes to significantly reduce carbon footprints. This conference brought together environmentalists, spiritual practitioners, and simple lifestyle advocates who generally do not communicate with each other, albeit with no ill intention. We plan to continue this excellent dialogue in future. As Mr. Praveen Kumar stated, there will be more such conference, and we appreciate the feedback, and we appreciate your enthusiasm and willingness to accept such conferences in future. Trust us, we will be back with another similar conference early in 2022, perhaps in person. This conference was hosted by Institute of Science and Spirituality, Delhi. ISS is always looking for dynamic people to come forward to help ISS in its mission of spreading simplicity, spirituality, and sustainability. If you are interested in contributing to this 3S theme, Please come forward and join this wonderful non-profit organization. As stated on this poster and several posters presented by Mr. Praveen Kumar, the purpose of ISS is very simple: to empower youth and other people to combat the burning issues of depression, anxiety, insecurity, societal race, and of course, environmental degradation. Lastly, I take this opportunity to express our sincere thanks to all speakers and our excellent audience, the participation of whom made this conference a big success. We promise that we will be back with yet another similar conference in the near future with a more attractive and robust agenda. Till then, please stay tuned, stay healthy, and be enthusiastic. I wish all of you best of luck in your fight against this ruthless enemy, which does not even have a cell structure. Good hygiene practices, high positivity, and confidence are the only ways to combat COVID-19. Please do not forget to fill in our feedback forms available at the conference website. Good evening and thank you so much. Now I would like to invite Dr. Neeti Joshi to close the conference with thanking remarks. Dr. Joshi.
Thank you, Professor Goel. Now I will express my vote of thanks. Once a great man whispered, feeling thankfulness and not expressing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it. Today, I take this opportunity to put all my gratitude into words. I feel a great sense of gratitude to the Institute of Science and Spirituality to have been asked to offer a vote of thanks on the occasion of International Webinar on Environmental Sustainability redefined through simple life practices and integrated spirituality organized by Institute for Science and Spirituality, which is a wing of ISKCON, New Delhi. On behalf of my colleagues in the Institute for Science and Spirituality and the entire organizing committee led by Engineer Praveen Kumar, Chief Coordinator ISS, and Professor Ram Goel, University of Utah, USA, I extend a very warm and hearty gratitude to all the participants, Dr. Rajendra Singh, Chief Guest, keynote speakers, paper presenters for sharing their graceful words and their vision on the advancement of scientific temper in our country with us, and the August audience in this two-day international webinar. It has been our tribute to host all the members and audience of the meeting and conference. I am thankful to all the participants for attending the webinar with full concentration and enthusiasm. We have been fortunate to have the renowned identity from academic, industry, spirituality, and other areas. I am very thankful to the entire participants as well as the sponsors of this conference. I am sure that ISS will continue to get significant provision from these diverse groups in the future. I further take this opportunity to extend our most sincere thanks to all the guests, invitees who have joined us from different destinations for their support and cooperation. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for the team of ISS, Dr. Sumit, Dr. Sasank, Dr. Sutikirti, Sri Asim Narottam Das, Sri Sarvagya Gaur Das, Dr. Jyoteshwar, our MCs, Dr. Nandita Sakia, Dr. Tushar, Dr. Ajanta Goswami, and Mr. Rishi, Sri Vigyan Sastra Das, Sri Rakesh Purohit, Sri Sadhu Gaurang Das, Sri Sanjeev, Sri Susen, Sri Indrajit Nagpal, Sri Asray Krishna, for their immense support, and still they are very important names that could not be taken here. I may also like to express my sincere thanks to media persons, both print and electronic, for giving an excellent coverage to our program. I take this occurrence to thank the entire committee as well as the audience for representing their valuable views. I must remark a proficient sense of gratefulness to all our guests for sharing with us with some of the finest talks amalgamating the science of science and spirituality and its applicability to our day-to-day life. All the participants of this conference are all inspired by the talks and papers presented here. Thank you very much, all the participants, presenters, everyone.
Okay, so it takes so much enthusiasm to start a conference and have different sessions, but it takes so much pain to end such a wonderful event, because in last 2 days, it just you are not only audience, you all become like a family. We are a family. We will stay connected. With that, I wish you good luck and best wishes for this pandemic. We all will come out great with good enthusiasm and with our good consciousness in the Supreme Personality of God. Thank you so much and a good night.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
all.
Thank you so much. And take care of yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajanta Prabhu, for your wonderful MC service.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prem Kusur Prabhu, for associating me.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you.
It
This
was
is
really
all.
good. And
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you a lot.
I would be very happy to be connected with ISS formally, if there is any formal way.
You are already
Yeah,
connected.
this is already we are already more than connected.
Yeah,
Praise
that's
Krishna Prabhu.
Hare
Praise
Krishna.
Krishna
Yes,
Prabhu.
yes.
Can I get opportunity to appear in front of you?
Yeah,
Yes,
please.
No, I don't have got permission. Oh, now it's there.
Is there any institute is located of the ISS? Is any office or any
Is it
premises there?
still